Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxx TV's podcast 222. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, coming at you from Australia. And Johnny V, it's like I'm a time traveler. It's already Wednesday here. In fact, I think it's 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. And I got to tell you, it feels great being ahead of you, buddy.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I make this joke every time that I think you should be upside down compared to me.
Oh,
You're on the other side of the world, so I think you should I should flip your picture around.
You know what is interesting? As we arrived here last night, we're in an Airbnb for the next 3 or 4 days. Currently, though, I'm doing the podcast here from Todd's house. Todd, who we had on a couple weeks ago, he's the tournament director. He graciously let me come over to his house so that we could do the actual podcast. But one thing that is very unique and interesting here is the light switches are exactly that. They're upside down. So you press them, and in order to turn a light on, you actually press down, and obviously the reverse to turn it off. So yeah, I would have to attribute that to being down under. Right?
It's got to be something with their electricity.
Also, what's really cool with their electricity, something else that I love about their light switches and a lot of their plugins, which I think are 240 volts. So I really don't want to stick a fork in one any more than normal. There's a little switch right next to every single outlet. So if you were going to, not use something for a while, but it remained plugged in, or maybe even if you unplug it, you can actually just turn off the switch right at the plug, right at the source. And I thought that was really interesting. So maybe they're just that much smarter and safer than we are. We'll go with that.
They probably are. They just got electricity there like a couple years ago. So
yes. Yeah, that's how Australia works. I think so. They do have great internet. Again, thanks to Todd and the crew. Little later, a little tease. I'll give you the tease. We've got a custom stamped disc. So if you want to be eligible to win this from the Australian Disc Golf Championships, this is a custom stamped disc that I'll bring back from the actual event this weekend. Oh, that's weird. It's a Discraft disc. Oh, what a coincidence. All right, so Johnny, enough posturing here. I think we're going to have Dana join us on the show. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been able to catch up with him. And then, as many of you already know, we're going to talk to Paul McBeth, who had a big announcement that he's moving over to Discraft. And we'll see if we can get some more details. I believe there's been not only the announcement, but he's possibly been on other media outlets. But we'll see what we can hear from him. I didn't even get a chance to consume any of those other conversations because I've been traveling. So I'm excited to learn a few new details for myself and see what Paul has to say. We'll also talk a little bit about the Next Gen Tour, which just wrapped up. We'll catch up with Dana on that a little bit and see what he saw as we were live with SmashBoxx this weekend. And then I guess we'll go from there and see what's happening before the Australian Disc Golf Championships kick off here in Australia this weekend.
I want to give a huge shout out to Chasing the Bees, who is literally growing the sport, waiting in the maternity ward for his second child. So growing the sport the good old-fashioned natural way. Congratulations, Chasing the Bees. Best wishes to you and the family. Hopefully everything is really smooth and works out really well for you. That can be a very nerve-wracking and trying time and exciting. So congratulations there. And without any further ado, somebody that's never been sponsored by Discraft, we're going to bring him on right now. His name is Dana Vici.
Dynamite, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Doing good. It's good to be back on. After you guys cut me last minute last week, I was sitting in this very seat, ready to go, all prepped up, had studied. I was ready to go, and then my heart just got ripped out.
Was that not entertaining?
That was before the show, and then my heart got stomped on during that awkward. It was a tough listen. I kept waiting for the silver lining, and Terry, Johnny, I want to open up the show, my part with a couple big hugs for you guys. I love you guys, SmashBoxx. I'm biased, obviously, but I know what you guys have done and how hard you've worked, and for how little you've seen maybe financially in terms of how hard you've worked, especially with the Pro Tour and all that. And you know, that's one of the reasons why it really hurt, is because I, you know, being on, you know, kind of seeing things from your side, I understand. You know, it felt like things, you guys were going to grow with the Pro Tour, and everybody was going to get disc golf rich, and then it just kind of got unexpectedly yanked out from underneath you guys. So big hugs to you guys. Although, you know, I say all that in the same breath, I do understand it's a business and everything, but this one really hurt, and I know the Smashies out there, they're feeling it too, and it seems like a lot of the internet is ablaze with it too, with the news that there might be no Jomez or in Central Coast, and SmashBoxx has already got the boot. Interesting times in the Disc Golf Pro Tour world.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain there's going to be no Jomez. That's kind of, I believe, already been decided. I found myself this week in a really funny position of defending Steve Dodge quite a bit online, because I think that he's getting a little bit, it might be just even a little harsh, some of the things that are going on right now. Things that are being said and people making assumptions. And of course, I hated to see it go down the way it did. I thought there was a lot of issues and a lot of things that Steve could have done differently. But I also do see a bigger picture for him. It just depends on whether or not that's going to pan out or it's going to blow up in his face. I don't know. I want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, but yeah, that's kind of funny. We were able to actually simmer down the Paul McBeth talk for a few days.
Well, so real quick, I'll go ahead, Dana.
I said that was short. It was short-lived, and then he reclaimed the disc golf news cycle for the time being. But go on, Terry.
Well, I was just going to kind of echo a couple points and something I had said. I think a day or two after the event, I remember, or after that, I had posted saying, you know, as many of you guys know, Steve Dodge was our first ever guest ever on SmashBoxx. Steve Dodge I feel like he has his heart in the right place. He wants the sport to grow. He would not take on this insane financial commitment, the insane time commitments and everything else that he does if he wasn't in it for all the right reasons. And you're right, Johnny, there's probably a little bit of harsh criticism out there, and we're flattered, as are all the other crews, I'm sure, that we have a following, or that we have our supporters and fan base of people that, you know, really do want to support what we're doing. So that's all great, but I trust in Steve. Like we all said, there's a degree of business here that has to be addressed, and I've always been a supporter of Steve. That will not waver. I am still going to be a supporter of Steve, and work and do anything I can to help push his efforts forward. So yeah, it's tough, and we've all become such good friends too. There's so many of us that are, you know, friends and co-workers now, in a sense, but I understand what he's doing and how he's going to go about it. And there is a lot of things to be determined, and we'll see how things shake out. You know, there's a little wait and see mentality here. And that's what I can say about that. And then I'll segue right into, you know, as you talk about Paul McBeth taking over the news network, but then, you know, and maybe this is also maybe almost even too fitting. Did I just see today, maybe perfectly timed or not, that the World Tour has officially said that they won't be continuing on in 2019, which, to be fair, as much as we may love that tour, to be fair, I don't think anyone was maybe holding their breath anyway, or maybe it had been completely swept under the rug or passed over. But I think there was an official announcement stating the World Tour won't be returning in 2019. And how I tie all of that together is we have to talk about Steve Dodge's business model, the Pro Tour, the media coverage, and then you turn and look at, you know, a similar or different approach that the World Tour took on. World Tour was there for a year or two, and that was the end of it. And Pro Tour here now taking a turn or a change of its own, and we'll have to see how that factors in and what the results of that are. So there's just a lot of things going on. But I will say, nicely timed to make sure you get that World Tour news out. If you don't really want to make a big hubbub about it, a day or so after Paul McBeth's news comes along, that's a good way to kind of just slide it right into the news cycle, but maybe not make a big deal of it. So,
well, it's out there now.
And that's too bad. It is. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Now that we blew the story up, I'm just kidding. No, but it's out there, and we'll see. I mean, the World Tour. You know, some people have famously said, no doesn't mean no forever. It just means not now. And we know UC's an innovator. We know UC is very passionate, just like Steve. And that's not to say the World Tour won't have some kind of resurgence sometime later. I mean, he's got the branding, he's got the names, he's got all that stuff. The World Tour may resurge in a few years. So I guess we'll see.
Maybe Steve is having UC run his live show now.
That's an idea, which is why we're iced out. So yeah, that does coincide perfectly since UC didn't. I mean, you're right. All right, Dana. On that note, let's slip into yet one other tour. No, not the American tour. We can let that one lay by the wayside. Let's talk a little bit about the Next Gen Tour. What did you see? Did you take any post-production or live action in this weekend with some of their up-and-coming superstars?
Unfortunately, I did not. I was following along live in the scores, but Vichy household, we got hit by the sickness again. The girls and myself were sick, so it was kind of all hands on deck again. So I didn't have much free time to sit in Smashbox, but I was watching mainly because Silas Schultz, young man from down in Louisiana, Baton Rouge to be exact, comes from a big old family of disc golfers, great group of kids. But he almost won last year as a 14-year-old, and it was, in that incredible final 9 finish or whatever you want to say with the ties and all that. He was in it till the end, and then this year he kind of he kind of took hold and really didn't look back after the first few rounds. First round was kind of quiet as a 986, but then he went 1039, 1013, 1047, and then 994, and that took him into the semis, where he then padded his lead by a few more strokes, and it was really it was hard to call it a 2-horse race between him and Kyle Klein because Kyle was so far behind. But then you take a look at the finals, and Silas apparently just could not get it going during that final 9. What can you tell us about that, Terry? Was he just playing safe? Was he missing shots, or was it a combination of both?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head when you talk about having that lead, and then really the two of them separated from everyone else, and then Kyle opens up the semifinals with struggling on hole number 1. We've all kind of infamously seen that by a number of our top players in the world struggle on hole 1 at Fountain Hills, and there you're like, okay, well this is a done deal. Now it's for sure Silas's event, and then lo and behold, Silas gets to that final 9, and he's sitting on 5, 6, 8 strokes, 8 strokes maybe, and it didn't seem like anything went right for him, and he was missing shots he hadn't missed all weekend, and maybe he just needed a little bit more of it to be closer or something. I'm not sure, but nothing went right for him. And at one point, as I'm selfishly worried about my flight and my next flight to Australia, I'm thinking, oh, come on, do not make this a playoff. What are you like? Come on, Silas, get it going here. And it wasn't until literally like the second to last hole where I was like, okay, he's going to have 4 strokes going into a water hole on the final hole. Almost no matter what happens, he can't go, give him all away here. And he made me a little bit nervous even on his behalf. And that's just really also a huge credit to Kyle. I mean, think about the resilience that Kyle had, and he continued to fight and grind, and he made people second guess for a few moments there. And Kyle's just 16. So Silas is 15, Kyle is 16, And these guys, other than maybe, Silas on that final few holes, man, I mean, just look at the ratings you just read off. I mean, these guys aren't amateurs by anyone's real definition moving forward. And I think you're going to see a whole class of people come out of this next gen, this year in particular, all then jump into the pro division where some of them rightfully belong.
Yeah. So Silas, he ended up holding off Kyle to win by 2, and then finishing third was Quinn Rodius, and then fourth Harold Greer. Can you tell me about either of those guys as well? Are those a couple names that we've seen on the pro? It looks like Quinn is he's out of Washington, the state of, that is, 989 rating. So and he
doesn't play much. He doesn't play too much. I think he's only got 2 or 3 events under his belt. And I interviewed, I think it was like 15 people on Saturday night. We wanted to make sure the next gen really feels and believes this, as do I. We really wanted that idea of when you're here at this big event, the culminating event, to give away a car, we try to emulate a lot of what we see at any of the professional events. So they had post-production coverage, they had highlights, they had interviews, and then going to the live coverage on Sunday. But Saturday night, we had a recap night where a lot of our top, I mean, I must have talked to 13 out of the top 20 or so players, or 25 players. And I kind of just brought him in, had an interview with them, kind of just chit-chatted. They just kept coming and coming and coming. And Quinn, I remember telling me, he's like, yeah, I like playing events. And then when I really think I'm gonna, it's too late, or they're sold out, or I don't have the info for them. I'm like, there's a thing called the internet, Quinn. We can click on a few things and we can find what you need. So he's only played a few events. He says he's improved greatly, even from last year, where he had a really good performance also at the next gen finale. And he throws far, and he's not shy about it, nor should he be. He throws really far. It's, as always, it's a matter of dialing in on that putting. And and then Harold comes out of Emporia. So, what conditions are you going to throw at him that he's not, able to conquer? Obviously, he's familiar with wind. If it were to get a little chilly, he wouldn't have any problems there. And he's a solid player as well. And, I think we're going to continue to see good things from him. So Quinn, if I had to guess, Quinn, I apologize. I'm guessing he's somewhere between 18 and 22. Certainly younger guy, lots of support from his family out there. And then, like we just mentioned, Silas, who's just 15, and Kyle, who's 16. I mean, talk about a very bright future with some of these young studs.
Yeah, and Silas I was impressed. I did catch a little interview with him. He's very, very well spoken and just a likable kid. So congratulations to him. What do you know?
Is a world champ, right?
I know that they got a double.
I believe.
Yeah, I think Silas got a doubles junior world championship this year, and then, or maybe one of the Schultzes did. But Thunder is you said he's a amateur champion.
Yeah. So, I mean, and he's got 10 brothers and sisters. I think half of them were out at the course or supporting this year. His dad is out there, just an awesome caddy and a guy to hang out with for the weekend that's clearly supporting him, and just a really, really good, healthy family. And then last week we just referenced Zambia, and Silas's sister, Esther, is one of the women going to Zambia to help spread disc golf. And spread the love there with Eagles Wings. And Silas was a previous junior grant winner from Eagles Wings. So, I mean, we just have a really good core family there, and I couldn't be happier for all of them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're at 2 of them are Discmania sponsored, Silas and Thunder, the oldest. But so yeah, that was the next gen. It's all done, and I'm interested to see what happens next year with it. I'm going to go bigger and better, or what we're going to see. Any idea, Terry?
That's exactly it. They said they want to go even bigger next year. Dave was tight-lipped this time. He wouldn't give me any details, but he said they're going to go even bigger next year.
There's a first for everything.
Yeah. I asked if they were gonna, during the live show, I just kept saying maybe we should just give out cars for second and third, and I couldn't get him to to bite on that either. But you know, you're going to see next gen next year. I think they've got some change ups. I know they're talking about how they're going to structure the entire series. And you know, I mean, they gave away a Kia Soul and a Jeep Renegade, so they're trending in a very positive direction when it comes to giving away these huge prizes. And you know, everyone at the event got a Zuka cart that made it to nationals. And one of the most telling parts for me was, as Pat Govang, one of the business developers with Next Gen, was on the final hole of the final round. He had said, all right, guys, you're all, you know, the 5 of you are here. There's been well over 100 events, including international events, and there's been 3,400 competitors. And we've got down to you guys, these top 5. And that really brought it home, like the culmination of this year and what it means to these players. So I think you're going to see Next Gen doing more stuff and probably even on a bigger level next year. So now, should be good.
I did notice, because I like to mention the women's divisions at each event. I scrolled down and there was not an advanced women. Is that, do they offer that during the year? I mean, what is the women's side? What is the Next Gen doing for growing the women's side of amateur disc golf?
Yeah, I think that was a change that they focused a little more strongly, and somebody from the board can probably correct me, but that was a change that they went forward with this year to try and enhance that experience and to encourage and welcome more women to playing. And I know there were divisions throughout the year for just that. And I'm not sure how that ultimately finished at the national level. I believe depending on where and how you place, they would have then been eligible to play in what you would really consider an open division at that point. So kind of like the USDGC, there can be men or women playing if you qualify on any given level. And I believe the Next Gen has kind of that same mentality. As throughout the year, there are separate divisions, but in a qualifying stance, if you qualify on the big stage, you can come and compete. But I don't believe there weren't any this weekend. So,
well, you know where there were women playing? Texas.
Yeah.
Paige Pierce, Maria Oliva, and about 5 other women were playing in the 28th Veterans Park Open, which was presented by Legacy and powered by, I don't know, Cram. This was the pro weekend. Only 61 total players, 39 in the MPO division, 7 in the FPO. Masters had 10, and then we had another 5 in the 50 and 55 plus. On the women's side, Paige Pierce, she ended the year like she started it, with a victory. And this was a pretty commanding wire-to-wire victory. After the first round, she had 7 throws on Maria. And then from there, she picked up another 8 throws, and then they pushed final round. So winning by 15 throws was Paige Pierce for $600. Getting second was Maria Oliva. And then finishing in third and cashing from Oklahoma was Tana Windover. And as I said, Paige ended her year like she started it, with a victory. Johnny, do you know how many wins Paige had to start the year?
To start the year, was it like 11 straight?
7, 8, 9. It looks like 9 wins. Could not quite hit that Chris Dickerson mark. How many wins did he start the year out with?
30. I don't know.
That was definitely double digits.
At least 6. Was it 6 or 12?
No, it was like 12 or something.
Yeah, I think it was 12. But yeah, Paige put a cap on a pretty tremendous year. 26, or we'll call it 25 because the NT bonus is on there. So 25 events. She won 15 of them. Just about hit that 30,000 mark. So really a heck of a year for Paige, and congratulations to her on that. I know that she kind of had some bumps in the road there after Masters Cup, where she stopped winning, but was still finishing in the top 2 or 3 every time. But just wasn't quite able to win every single event, unfortunately for her. But shout out to Paige.
That's
for
a
that.
really special, yeah, a really special pressure that we put on Paige. Like, oh, is she in a slump? She didn't win. Very few people can we put in that light or that category. So it's certainly an awesome year for her. And congratulations, real quickly. Also, I think just recently announced, maybe since our last show, my week is completely off, by the way. But I think since our last show, it was announced that she has officially signed a 3-year deal. And I know we talked, I mentioned it a week or 2 ago that she was likely, or she told me she was 99.99 going to sign on that line. But it was announced recently that she is with Discraft with Dynamic Disc for a 3-year deal. So that's also very exciting and crazy. And we'll talk about Paul in a moment, but 3 years, that's kind of a little bit out of the norm, outside of Paul and Simon in the last 2, big announcements.
And Sexton.
Anything over 2 years. Oh, thank you. Okay. Anything over 2 years just isn't that common. Prodigy, Dynamic Disc, usually Innova or whomever. More often than not, you're talking 1 and 2 year contracts. So congrats. And again, Dynamic Disc, congrats to both of them for locking that all down.
Yeah, nice pickup by DD. Color me not surprised. Somewhat surprising though was how the men's side shook out over at the Veterans Park Open. As I said earlier, 39 total open players, and old schooler legend. He's not all that old, but he's been around for a long time. Great player. Nolan Greider. He came out with a smoking hot first round. He popped off a little 1060 round to give him a 2-throw lead after 1. And that was 2 over Eagle Win McMahon. I don't know, Johnny, you may have heard of him. But anyways, going into the second round, unfortunately, Nolan wasn't able to keep that 1060 pace up. He dropped off with a 994. But taking his place was Emerson Keith. This is a kid that I kind of became aware of, I don't know, sometime mid-year. I saw some video of him and then caught him in Idlewild, and he's not a big person. He's on the shorter side, super smooth player, really good disc golfer. But Emerson popped off the 1065 for round 2, and then he had the lead going into the final round. And during that second round, he actually he threw a pretty nice ace, which was on Jomez. Not too many trees in the way, but it was a long shot. It did skip right in, so that was pretty cool. But Emerson was able to hold off the likes of Eagle. He beat him. He ended up beating him by 4 total throws. Austin Hannum finished in 3rd. Simon, he ended up in 4th place. He finally put together a good round for round 3. According to the commentary, Simon was considering not even playing the event because he had been shooting a trick shot video all week with Paul McBeth and Brody. So every step was a challenge for Simon, literally. I think every step hurt, and it hurt to throw, and he just it looks like those first 2 rounds really echo that with him going 1001, 1008, but then coming around final round with that 1055 to salvage the weekend. But Emerson Keith, $2,000 he picked up. Eagle got $1,200, and Austin Hannum $900. But Emerson, I don't know if you guys knew this, but he plays a lot of disc golf and a lot of PDGA events, like an insane amount. He's over 50. This was his, I believe,
this year, Dana.
Yeah, this was his 53rd event. Yeah, 53rd event. And he just did not stop playing. And he played a lot of big events too, where he's only able to put one event on a weekend. Just an incredible year. And then on top of playing that many events, he started the year out at a 998 rating. He had not yet eclipsed the 1,000 mark. Well, come March, he hit 1,001. And then August, he's up to 1012. And then as of now, he's at a 1013. So he brought his rating up. He's got 135 rounds used to generate that 1013 rating. So for a lot of you that play events and try to get your rating up, and it only goes up a little bit, Emerson was able to raise his quite a bit this year, 15 points, and to get himself to that 1013 level. And doing that, playing a ton of events, is not an easy thing to do. So he played a lot of disc golf, and he played a lot of good disc golf this weekend.
Yeah, he lives in that area.
Yeah, he lives in that area down in Texas where you can have
all the flex starts, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that helps. But Dana, if you look back, right, does he not own the record for most events, PDGA events in a year? Didn't last year, wasn't he around 70? I think Tom McManus has pointed me to his profile a number of times.
Yep. 73 minutes.
I don't have 73 rounds of golf in the last like 5 years now that we do media, and he's played 73 events last year and another 50 plus this year. I mean, that's just incredible. So certainly out there doing some work.
Yeah, he's been a PDGA member since 2011. He's got 177 total events on under his belt. 53 career wins. I'm not sure how many of those are in the open division, but looking at this year and last year, he's got more than 20. He's got to have more than 20 wins over the last 2 seasons in the open division. So he's a gamer, and again, he was someone that I was impressed with, and coming into Idlewild, and then I got to see him play from a card away, and then I think even maybe some video, and that even continued to impress me. So nice work, Emerson. Congratulations on the victory, and then I guess congrats on 53 events. It's kind of weak if you compare it to 73. So step it up next year, buddy. Anyways, good stuff there. And I'm sure there was a Spikeheiser event, but I know that we've got an important guest coming in behind me that you guys probably want to get to.
Well, he's apparently moving the needle. We talked about him a few weeks ago as to who sells discs and how it happens. And with one of our higher ever live viewership numbers sitting here just waiting, I know they're all here to hear what you have to say, Dana, but some of them may want to hear from that McBeth fella. So I do appreciate the updates, and I think we're going to cut you loose.
If they haven't heard from him,
find out
10 other hours already. This is it's getting a little redundant, right? I mean, aren't you guys usually break?
But we get the good stuff out of him.
Well, and to be fair, was it not the PDGA podcast that went on to a special day and time just to make things happen so they could try and get the scoop? I mean, if you got to do that, I'm sorry. I was traveling internationally. We couldn't make that happen. I'm sorry.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys, and hey, big hugs. When you guys are putting live disc golf on, I'm going to try to watch or hopefully play in front of the cameras. But big hug, and thanks for everything. So tell Paul I said hi.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you. Thanks for the insights, and thanks for the information about some of the events from around the country. And although we won't be live at all the Pro Tour stops next year, we'll keep having you back, Dana, every week. Can't get enough.
All right.
All right. Have a good night, Dana. All righty. So as usual, Dana Mike giving us some updates. Good stuff. And do you have Paul? I'm not sitting next to you this time, Johnny, so I don't know if you've got Paul waiting and if he's ready to go. He's in our digital green room. Okay. And hopefully we'll get some information and updates. And maybe while you're waiting, or if you're trying to get him, are you bringing him on?
Yep, he's getting his video right now, and we're going to bring him on any second here.
And I guess I can just wait for a moment. I was going to ask exactly at what time this news had officially dropped, but was that Monday that it happened? Yeah, today's
it's
Tuesday for
something
you
like
guys.
that. All right, let's bring Paul on.
Monday. Hello. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Hey, guys.
Welcome to the show,
Good,
Paul.
how are you? Thank you.
We're good. So it looks like your new contract affords you a haircut too. Even you must be getting at it.
Yeah. Actually, would this be better if I turned it sideways, or should I hold it vertical?
It doesn't matter. If whatever way you turn it, we'll make it work.
All right, I'll just hold it like this. Yeah, well, with the video and Brody Smith and Simon and all that ads, I had to get a nice new haircut. So.
All right. So before we get into those details, break down. I mean, last week there was a hint of it, and then there was a little leak regarding your contract, but that's separate. But you going to Texas, Simon going to Texas, Eagle was going to play, Simon was going to play. You weren't going there to compete, but break down and share what you can as to what some of your trip to Texas was all about last week.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can share most of it, if not all of it. But flew out there Sunday. I think it was Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. I was gone Sunday to Sunday. So flew out there Sunday, landed at like noon, and immediately went over, got a rental car, met Jomit. So I landed at noon, had to be at the course by 2 p.m. So stopped, checked in my hotel, dropped everything off, changed, and headed over and did that ad that you guys saw yesterday, I think. Yeah, today's Tuesday. So the ad that dropped yesterday. So did that on Sunday, and then Monday was when we met up with Brody and started doing trick shots. And met with Brody, and Simon and I were sharing a hotel. So we cruised over, did some trick shots for about, and if you guys don't know, like trick shots and advertisements and videos and stuff like that, it takes forever. So it was
it doesn't have to. It depends on how good you are.
Well, the way that he does it, he does by hours, not by how many shots you make. So we went from 12 to 9 p.m. or 12 to 7 p.m. Sorry, the first day.
So 7 straight hours of throwing discs.
Yep, no food, no nothing in there. Just 7 hours of throwing discs. And then Wednesday, we were having some trouble. We were supposed to find a facility. We were hoping AT&T Stadium, but that didn't work out. So unfortunately, we weren't able to get in there. So it kind of washed out the day. But we ended up going to Top Golf later that day and just hitting some golf balls and hanging out with Brody and the Jomez crew. So that was really cool. So it was kind of still a fun day, but we were able to lock down a place for Wednesday. And then Wednesday, we started at 8 a.m. and we went up until dark. So that was like 6 p.m. there. So
wow,
nearly 12. So 10 straight hours with a little lunch break. And then, so that was the Brody part, 3 straight days. Only 2 were full of filming. And then I had more promotional stuff at Discraft. So another day of full filming.
Any idea when the Brody video is going to drop? About?
I heard the latest early December.
Okay.
So
real quickly, for those who don't know, you just mentioned Brody Smith, ultimate player, had really become on the scene for doing a lot of ultimate trick shots using an ultimate disc. Then from there, his career exploded. And I would say the number one thing when it exploded was him throwing a disc off of a bridge to somebody catching it, jumping off of a boat and then catching it. Was that in Australia or was that somewhere else?
He definitely did one in Perth, Australia, because I've seen the bridge being out there for the Australian Open or Australian Championship, whatever that tournament was called. But yeah, he's done a number of things like off a boat, off a jet ski, all sorts of trick shots that have soared through the webs.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, and I know we have a little crossover in our Frisbee family with our ultimate and our disc golf, but Brody really helped put a lot of the trick shot disc golf, I'm sorry, Frisbee related trick shots on the map. And then from there, I mean, he's worked with people like Hewlett Packard and other. Has he worked with some car companies? Maybe it was Audi or some other car company. I mean, he's gone on to work.
I think he worked for
really
I think he did an appliance company commercial as well, or maybe
it
was a big box.
Yep. Some big golfers, some other athletes. He's doing his pro versus bro. So he's doing all sorts of athletes now, whether it's football, golf, or other sports. So he's definitely getting into the scene more.
Well, and I'm not going to put Johnny V on blast. And when I described Brody Smith 5 or 6 years ago, I think Johnny and I may have placed a little better a wager, and he said, "Okay, in a year we'll see if he's still relevant." And
yeah,
I didn't say relevant. I think I said bigger than he is now.
Okay. Well, needless to say, Brody has done great at self-marketing and then using all of that to just start a whole nother career. Now, before, sorry to make this about Brody, but last rumor we had heard is he's obviously very athletic, very into his sports, but is he truly trying to pursue a PGA career? Is that where he's kind of shifting some of his focus? Did you guys talk about that?
We didn't talk anything about PGA, but I mean, he knows a lot of stats, numbers, pros, and things like that. When we were at Top Golf, we were having like a speed contest, and he was smoking us on the ball velocity. He was hitting it like he was saying that the top golf drivers are about 20 miles per hour, 18 to 20 miles per hour slower than what a nice top of the line driver is, and he was hitting 170, I think, with it. 170. I was at 150, so he was getting some more velocity on the ball. So he said he's around 180. I think he said he hits it about 184 to 189, somewhere in there. So he's up there with the touring pros from the sounds of it, on driver speed, but I don't know about the rest of his game. But he loves golf. Okay. He says he does it every day.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I've seen it. I've been following him for quite a few years, and I see just that as he's getting more and more involved with it. Now, he's done a trick shot video. He's worked with Simon. He's worked with Avery in the past. How much does he follow disc golf? Does he know kind of what's going on in the scene, or is it just kind of a fringe thing? How much does he pay attention to what's going on in the world, like the weekly, activities in disc golf? Is that something he follows closely or not really?
I don't think he follows it too closely. I think he named a pro or two. He might have named Sexton, or he might have remembered Sexton after we said it for once. Because he was talking about, he was relaying like ultimate moves, like flipping the disc. And we're like, oh yeah, Nate Sexton does that. He goes, yeah, that's totally an ultimate move. So he obviously knows Avery and Simon. But other than that, he didn't really know too much about disc golf, but he caught on pretty quickly.
How much of the crew, he's obviously, I think at one point it was literally him and a cameraman when he originally got started, 5-8 years ago. Now he's an entire brand. He's a major operation. Was he bringing his own cameras and crew along? Where was it a full-blown collaboration? Will we see it on multiple channels? Like, how did that all work?
Yeah, it was like 10 large cameras, just everywhere. No, but honestly, it was just him and one other guy that had a camera. So it was more Jomez guys than he had.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Well, let's focus the conversation a little bit more towards stuff that our fans want to hear about. Let's talk about you, Paul. Let's talk about your new deal with Discraft. Right. I know. Everybody wants to hear about Brody, but you guys can compare pocket books later or something. But ultimately, you apparently recently, even though the rumors have been out there for quite a while, signed a new deal with Discraft for 4 years, and the number, I've heard a dozen numbers, but the ones that were confirmed were $1 million plus. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's $1 million plus, because you can't really put a cap on it, because if it goes off disc sales, you never know. you never know. So there was no cap on how high, but we kind of settled on that number, and we'll go from there. But so that means I have my work cut out for me. So
I guess that it begs the first question when we talk about $1 million is, if heaven forbid, if tomorrow you broke your leg and it just never healed, and maybe there's some some other clauses in there, but let's just say you couldn't play next year in your normal capacity. Are those numbers that are based on performances, or is that more or less like a guaranteed number?
It's more so a guaranteed number. So I better take care of myself. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to playing. So I don't think that it would hold me out for 4 years from playing. But yeah, it's more than just playing. So.
How important to you was the $1 million number? Like, it could have been 3 years for 750. Was that a number that you thought, this is something that's going to make a splash?
Yeah, definitely. I think hitting that mark is 750,000 is nothing to laugh at or anything like that. But I think it's a bigger deal to get to that $1 million mark, and just being able to say that, I feel is a little bit bigger to the public, not just our disc golf fans out there and I guess essentially family, but yeah, I think it makes more of a splash than just hearing 750,000.
So when we're looking at a couple years ago when you had signed your last contract, looks like a delivery for the tournament is showing up. I don't know if I'm gonna have to deal with it. When you signed your last contract, it was for 3 years, $500,000. How did some of those numbers and those details vary? I mean, besides the all too obvious actual numbers, but I mean, in terms of like the stipulations on them, and I'm gonna, as you answer, I'm gonna answer the door. All right.
I guess mostly what Terry was asking is it was mainly off disc sales, and that's just how Innova has functioned basically forever. So kind of just had to go off that, hope my disc sales and meets the numbers that they're looking for. And that's, it was guaranteed to a certain amount. And then if it went over that, exceeded that number, then we would settle after.
All right. I apologize. Sorry.
Welcome back, Terry.
The Australian, I'm at the TD's house for the weekend. Real quick recap on that answer. Sorry.
Yeah, basically it was just, it was guaranteed. And then if it was off disc sales, and then if it exceeded that, then I would get whatever over that number. So yeah.
Okay, so speaking of disc sales, it's been really no secret that many of your discs have done very, very well. And over at Innova, you've had a signature series of disc, and then you had a tour series of disc. I think about the McPro Rock 3s, the McPro AVR, so on and so forth. And then you, on the other side of that, you have, the Nova that could be picked up as kind of a more stock item, along with obviously the Star Destroyer. How many discs did you originally, or when you were leaving Innova, how many discs did you ultimately have your name on?
Before leaving Innova, I had the 4 signature series and I think 3 tour series. So 7, but there were supposed to be more that never came out in what the contract said. So there were some that didn't come out, but then I think they were just kind of doing like the commemorative stuff and things like that. So it was hard to say because I still think they have like a USDGC rock that'll come out by the end of the year or something, which isn't anything due to sponsorship, but mainly for the USDGC. So 7, I would guess.
So when you're looking at those, and I'll use just as you referenced, a great example. You have the McPro AVR. They sell, X amount of those. You get a portion of that sale, but then you had certain instances happen, and I think to you shooting the 18 under at the Great Lakes Open. Ironic, maybe. You shoot the 18 under there. you win the USDGC, so on and so forth. They put a new stamp on the back of the McPro AVR. Those go up for online, and then those sell out in minutes. So it's always been interesting to me to see how that contract end or those special instances, what those really mean to you, because we have a player like a Madison Walker, for instance, who has a Thunderpecker. It's available, it sells out, and it's undetermined, or there's not necessarily a set schedule of when we're going to see more of them. And then I look at yours and I see you perform well. You have a big weekend. They put up a couple thousand McPro AVRs. Those sell out in minutes, and then we possibly see more, maybe a little bit more quickly than some of the other tour series. Do you feel like, maybe it's a dumb question, but did you like that when they were kind of making these special one-offs that would then have an immediate surge in sales?
I mean, I think it's good, because it could be anyone on the team, not just myself. So, with the
Greg Barsby for Worlds.
Yeah, for Worlds, the KC AVRs. So I think it's a good thing to keep with, keep going. But as far as disc sales, we have no clue what the numbers are. I have no clue what Madison sells. I have no clue what I sold. That's
they don't
something that
give you like some sort of inventory on what you sold.
No, I've asked, but never received anything. But from what I hear, they can come up with the number, but I haven't seen anything.
Well, and that was my follow-up. So the Destroyer, clearly one of the more popular discs on the planet. Your name's been on it. It was in a very interesting turn of events. It was actually, I hate to use the word taken, but it was given up by Avery. Your name was then put on it. Obviously, Destroyers are sold. And then you get a monthly, or I think you said at one point a quarterly check. But you really, I mean, and you can tell us if this is customary for everyone. You have no idea. If they sold 1 million Destroyers or 100 Destroyers, you don't see any kind of inventory. You're kind of just taking the manufacturer at their word. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah. And it's not like I'm not knocking on Innova or anything like that. Like I've never seen a number.
No.
I don't know if anyone has. But since I got the Destroyer, I think before and after I got the Destroyer, I didn't really see increase in pay or anything like that. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out this winter if there was a lot bigger number than previous years since having the Destroyer.
So let's talk real quick about your possible upcoming discs for Discraft. Can you say anything? There's been some images that have popped up.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. It almost lines up with, this was leaked.
Yep. Yeah.
Just move a little, Paul.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that, or is that something you want to wait?
I mean, you just put it on there, so you can put it up there and see the floor again. So, I mean, whether I say it or not.
I mean, nobody knows if that's a Photoshop. That could be somebody out there just making crap up. Nobody knows yet.
Yeah, I mean, I like the picture, so they got good lighting on me for that one. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have signature discs with them, and those 4 are 4. And it says January 2019. Is that what it said on there? But it's gonna be the PDJ magazine. You'll actually be able to see it on the PDJ magazine when it comes out. I think it's going to be the back page. So.
Okay, so and I don't have that image in front of me at the moment, but a long-winded way of me getting at talking about those various discs that you had, and now here what is it? The Buzz, the Force, the Undertaker, and a Zone. So a moment ago I was talking about you said the 7 discs that you had from Innova. We're missing a putter out of that lineup, and I think I have a pretty good guess of where we're going with it, but you're missing a putter out of that lineup. And B, are these any kind of variants to those discs, or are those, I'll say, stock discs that you're putting your name on and just are becoming discs that you're throwing?
Yeah, they're stock discs. That was, I think that's the first run stamp on those. I think it says it on there. Yeah, those are stock disc signature line, essentially, kind of like what DOS has, the Z-Force, I believe. I'm trying to think. Yeah, but I think it's a distance driver, fairway driver, mid putter lineup right there. But obviously, there's more than those 4 discs that I'll be throwing.
Maybe you can't say. As of this very moment, what have you been practice putting with? Have you been testing out all the different models?
A handful. Like when we were negotiating, we didn't sign until Saturday. Last Saturday is when the deal was finally signed. We'd settled on some terms and things like that. So that's kind of where people were getting all these numbers and speculation and things like that. I'm sure when I was talking to Sam, we're like, let's get 4 million. So that's probably where 4 million came from. You got to start somewhere. So when it started getting serious and things were getting close to signing, I got sent quite a few boxes of Discraft discs. So when I opened the first box, there was Challenger OS, Challenger SS, Roach, Magnets, APX, like basically anything you can think of. And I just kind of chose by feel what I thought I liked, but I didn't. Then went out and tossed them. But honestly, the putter is probably the one that I've used the least out of everything so far. So I've been really just trying to throw the mids, drivers, distance drivers. So I think the putter will be the easiest one to dial in.
And I was going to just follow that up and say, some would say, well, I guess I'll ask, are you partial to anything? Way back in the day when you were very early in your career, you actually at one point were putting with a magnet, weren't you?
Yeah. Before I was sponsored by Innova, my first tournament was 2005 AM Worlds, and that was, I think, a Discraft one. And that's actually the first world champion I ever met was Nate Doss. So it's pretty cool. He just won the AM World or the Pro Worlds in 2005, and Discraft flew him out to AM World. So I got a mini signed by Nate Doss when he was just a little kid. So I think he was 19 or something. But yeah, I think I had magnets then or AVR. But anyways, I got script and I ended up getting a buzz and probably magnets then because most of the script was Discraft. So that's when I got my first taste of what Discraft was. But there was nowhere to get it around where I was from, so I never got anything else after that.
You shared an Instagram video or Instagram picture of a stack of first run discs.
Yeah.
Can you share what those are, or is that still top secret?
No, those were destroyers, the McPro Aero Stamp destroyers, and I have a stack of Forces next to them, ESP's Force, and they look exactly the same. Like, I think the Forces were a little bit brighter colors. Those were kind of more brownish and red. But I put there was a crown on top of them because I was covering the wires on the TV, and that picture looked better than the cowboy hat. So I just put that on there, and everyone's like, McBeth bought the whole run of destroyers, and he's got all the best ones, and it's literally like 40 discs. Like, it's all I ever had. So I can tell you, Innova's never made like a batch that small of 40 of anything. So
a moment ago, you referenced Nate Doss, and you talked about some old memories with him. Clearly, Nate Doss has been the face, at least on the male side for sure, the face of Discraft for many years now. Obviously we saw Ron Russell there. We saw Eric McCabe win a world championships with them. But when it's all said and done, Nate Doss winning 3 world titles with them, also being from California like yourself. Have you had conversations with Nate? And if so, what have they been like? And when did you start talking to him, if ever?
My first conversation with Nate about Discraft, he actually called me when he got wind that things were even being talked about. And he's kind of like, the way that he views Discraft is literally like family. Like, those are his family, and he is very protective of them. And when he heard that I was, in negotiations with Discraft, he was kind of like, why? Like, what does he want? Like, not like in a bad way, but like, it doesn't make sense. Essentially, it's how he saw it. And so he just called me and asked some questions and just wanted to figure out what my plans were and what I was really trying to get out of it. And we just had a conversation about it, and I shared my plans and my future and what I want to do. And he was completely happy with it, and he was just protective of them. And he just told me their family. I want to look out for them because they've looked out for me my whole career, and he wants to do the same with them. So that was our first conversation, and then I really haven't talked to him besides just kind of asking about how his brewery's going. He's kind of updated me here and there about, it's moving, they got their things going, and just about how he's taking time off, and he's really excited about what he's doing now. And the last thing I got from him was congrats and welcome, and he's excited. So,
is it fair? I think is the best way to word this. Is it fair for someone like Nate, for some of our other previous champions that were maybe just before your time? Is it fair for them to have any bitterness or jealousy or resentment toward seeing someone like you come along and then get such a large contract?
Is it fair for them to feel that way?
Yeah. Do you feel like that might be a fair feeling for them to have, like to be maybe just a bit bitter or jealous or have a little bit of resentment toward the fact that, okay, here comes this McBeth guy and he's getting this massive contract. Meanwhile, someone like a Nate, who obviously, performed so well over so many years with one sponsor, I think we all know no one else has received a contract probably anywhere near this size.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's, if someone was maybe a little resentful, that might be a fair feeling for them, or no?
I mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, people can feel that way. I don't want to pinpoint on Nate or anyone, but if you're putting in the time and the work and all the media obligations and everything else, and you're selling plastic and going above and beyond what anyone's ever asked, and you're not getting anything, and your popularity is almost similar to someone else's, and you're not getting half of what they're getting, then sure, it's justified. But if you're not really trying, and you've won a world title, and you're just going to sit back on it and kind of not do all that stuff and just focus on playing and hopefully winning's doing enough for you, then no, you don't really have the reason to be bitter, because there's more than just playing.
And I think we live in a different time now than when Nate last won his world championship in 2011. We've got social media now, which is a huge obligation for players because we don't have social media managers. And unfortunately for Nate, there wasn't the media presence that we see now. That there isn't that drive to when a player has their name on a disc that everybody has to have it. And the sport is 5 or 10 times bigger than it was way back then.
Yeah, and I can see Nate just being totally satisfied with where he's at now, and just working on the brewery and still collecting on what he's collecting, and that's good for him. That's enough for him, and enough for him and Val, and they're happy. So if they're happy, then he's not going to care what's going on with my end, and I think that's fair with any other pro.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I know Nate very well, as do you, and I think almost the entire disc golf world knows that Nate is the definition of a professional in every sense of the word. And I didn't necessarily think him specifically have a resentment, but if others would or could, and on the flip side of that, so many of, we could all say it, and I think you've kind of alluded to it, a rising tide raises all boats, or whatever, however the saying goes. As these contracts get bigger and one player is seen with a solid contract, that might give at least a new starting point for another player to kind of adjust accordingly, up or down or whatever the case might be. Is this going to do it, or are you just getting the best deal in the world? Or do you think we're going to see others kind of forced, or their hand will be forced to step up their game, on the manufacturer side or the sponsorship side?
I mean, I think the goal is to have more players, get bigger contracts. I know Nate just signed his 3-year deal. I don't think they disclosed anything about it, but I know it's a lot bigger than he's gotten, before. And that's not just generally because of his play, because he won USDGC 2 years ago, but the commentary that he's doing. The commentary has probably made a bigger splash and made him bigger than his play ever has. So I think players are going to start finding these outlets into other aspects of the game to where it can build their brand essentially. And I think these contracts will be more than just the play.
I think we've asked you this before. I was going to say, I think we've asked you this before, but do you feel that players' contracts, you said that Nate's wasn't disclosed, that we haven't seen some other ones. Do you think that this should be more public knowledge?
I think to an extent, like how mine is, 4 years, 1 million, and whatever else it said at the end. You can only disclose so much. If it's guaranteed, like you can disclose that because there's a potential that there's going to be more. You just don't know how much more. What else can be done and all the other aspects to it. But I mean, if it feels like stealing, like a company feels like they're stealing a player, then you might not want to disclose it. So hopefully they start coming out and we kind of see what the sport is making as a whole. But I don't fault people and companies for not disclosing it, but I've always wanted to because I feel other sports do it, and other sports, if you watch when all the big signings are happening in sports, you're just like, wow, they're getting paid millions on millions to play a game. Like, why? One day I hope ours is like that, and you can hear about 5 contracts that are, being open.
Well, and to be fair, you might be a little bit more willing to share some of the details, knowing that you're on top of that hill, that mountain, right? I mean, and it's not necessarily an ego-driven thought at all. It's just you're getting paid the most. That might be a little bit more exciting for you to share rather than the man or the woman who's getting paid the 33rd most. Like, it's just not necessarily as much of a talking point. Do you feel like, how to word this the right way? Do you feel like 1 million and change, or whatever, however you just referred to it, 1 million, do you feel like you're getting still what you're valued? I mean, that might be what you agreed on. I don't know how the negotiations exactly went, but do you feel like you're getting what you're valued?
I think it's a great starting point, definitely with Discraft, because there is so much more that I can do with them than, I guess, say Innova, just because where they are positioned. So I'm happy with it. I'm happy with where we're starting and where we can go. So this is, I'm happy with it, because I know there's so much further we can go together, and it might change in the future.
A lot of people have talked about what this might mean for Discraft in terms of aid. Of course, even I'll say the foolish comments that said that they can't afford you or afford this contract, which is obviously just foolish. But to follow that up, people have said, okay, is this a shot in the arm for Discraft? Is this the boost? Are you going to do that along with a few other team members that I think will be surprised to see? Is this that boost? Is this the marketing overhaul that many people are saying Discraft is ready for a new look, a new face, some different rebranding? Is this all part of that big picture? And is that what you say when you say, there's more places that this can go?
Yeah. I mean, the way that I see it, I'm trying not to speak for them, but the way that I've seen it and kind of talking to them and kind of seeing the vision that they were going for is when that whole Prodigy shift and all the the new companies came out and Latitude started sponsoring a bunch of players. Discraft was kind of left in the dark. A lot of their players left for Prodigy and things like that. So they kind of just took that, like, they were a little hurt at first that so many people just left for something so new that isn't established, that they're like, what, we're gonna sit back on disc golf for a little bit, but we're gonna put this money that we had for these players, we're gonna put it back into our company. We're gonna update this, we're gonna update that, we're going to be ready, because disc golf isn't going anywhere. Disc golf is going to continue to grow, and I see it being that way. Still from this day, it's going to continue to grow. So they kind of saw that, And they're like, let's be ready for when we can make our move in the future, and let's be ready for it. Let's up this, let's up that, let's get bigger space. We're going to need it, blah, blah. So I think they just set up for this moment the last 5 years.
Do you think you being on the team is going to help drive them to pick up other players? I mean, you've got yourself, Austin Turner, Michael Joe, obviously Nate Doss, and a handful of other pretty solid players, but most of them aren't necessarily big touring players anymore. Are you hoping to be the catalyst that maybe pulls in some bigger names?
I mean, that'd be nice. I think some of the issues with sponsorships is they sponsor way too many players. Not Discraft, but just other companies sponsor way too many players to where it kind of waters it down and dilutes it. So hopefully, the top becomes the top, and Discraft can land another big player. Maybe 5 or 10, however many you want for an elite team. Yeah, I mean, hope so. I hope so. I'm not gonna, publicly say like, yeah, I'm gonna pull a bunch of top players, because ultimately it's a product that does it, and the company, not me.
I know what your answer is going to be to this, but I need to ask it anyway. Put your tinfoil hat on. One of the rumors that we saw with the Jomez reveal video was the scorecard at the bottom. It had yourself, it had Eagle, it had Yuli, and one other player. I forget.
It was me, Yuli, and Eagle. Yeah.
And it said 2019 on it, and people are starting to jump to the conclusion that maybe this is Discraft's 2019 team. Can you confirm or deny any of that?
Well, Eagle's already signed to Discmania, so that's already not true. But I don't know why Jomez picked them. I have no clue why. I think just because they were trying to sell it as a
like a realistic card.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at those are the 3 major winners from this year and Yuli. So
okay.
I can see why they picked those 3. But yeah, I don't know why Yuli.
Oh, okay.
So another big conversation piece has come up, has been DGI and what they've been doing. You, along with plenty of others, have talked about the representation that that group is doing to try and attract outside sponsors. They're representing everyone from our players to also Jomez. If I recall from the article last year, they represent the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So where does I believe his name is Sam? Where does Sam and the rest of the DGI group, where does that factor into this in contract negotiations with Discraft or non-negotiations with Innova? How did that all unfold?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just start from the beginning. Signed with DGI at the beginning of this year or the end of last year, somewhere around there, kind of for a 2-year deal. And when I signed, I knew nothing was going to happen immediately, because it's just they got to build traction, they got to do all this. So I knew nothing was going to happen. But then after Ledgestone is kind of when Discraft kind of came in, and I was offered like a deal just openly, just kind of like, hey, what do you think about this? And I brought it to Jonathan Poole and was kind of like, hey, JP, like, this is kind of significant. I wouldn't bring it to you if it wasn't kind of a big deal. So brought it to him, and I was like, it was kind of difficult to talk to another company, and me talking to another company, as a player of Innova. So he kind of suggested bringing DGI into it, and just like, this is why you have an agent. You should use them, because at the beginning when we signed with DGI, it was kind of like they're going to work more on outside disc golf companies, but there was nothing that said that they weren't going to work inside disc golf companies. By the contract, we kind of made a list of who we're already involved with, and kind of who he shouldn't talk to, or kind of just out of respect, he'll stay out of it. And Innova was one of mine, and then so JP just kind of mentioned, like, yeah, you should put him on this and have him talk to him. So Sam kind of made the room to talk to both companies, just because he kind of just thought he would, and then it was kind of suggested through JP that I have my agent do all the work, and then I can just focus on playing. And worked out for the playing part at the end of the year. I didn't have to deal with all those negotiations and things like that. So he led the charge. Sam led the charge and went back and forth between Discraft and Jonathan Poole. He really only talked to Jonathan Poole. But yeah, he was involved heavily and kind of got all the negotiations going at the beginning.
Do you think
so
that's
fair to say?
I was going to say, do you think that's going to drive some other players to maybe use DGI, some of the ones that are already signed, to help with their negotiating deals? I know traditionally Innova hasn't. I mean, it's kind of a public record. They say they don't really talk to agents, but at some point they might have to.
I'm assuming they're going to have to sooner or later. I was asked by a few players, like Nate, and then a few other players that about using DGI, because I was kind of open that I was having Sam handle it all and the group. So like Nate, he was re-signing with Innova, and he was asking what he should do with the DGI, and I said, well, if you've already talked, I would just let Sam know, that this is already a company you've already established with, and you'd like his input, but you don't want to use him. And I'm sure he's very understanding, and he'll understand. I think he went with that, and then some other players I heard just completely skipped out of him. So I don't know how that's going to work, but switching companies and things like that. So we'll find out if there's anything negative about that. But I told people if they're switching, you should just at least talk to Sam. He's very understanding. Let him know that this is in disc golf. You already have the relationships established, and he'll understand. But if you're going to go jump out and do it without telling him, it might be a little rocky.
Well, and it certainly could be an awkward situation. I mean, if you're talking about making one of the largest career moves of your career, if you're talking about making a huge move, and then someone that is essentially hired or contracted to be working on your behalf, but then you're not having intimate conversations with that person about it, I would definitely think that would bring in a whole lot of awkwardness, or at least opportunity for it, for things to be a little bit,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just like you said, that you signed a contract and you're obligated to follow that contract, and if you don't at least talk about it, it can get ugly. So that's the benefit of contracts, and also the negative is what you're getting, but you know what you have to do.
So, can you give us any insight? I know we just talked about you coming aboard and whether or not you'll have that influence, or people that may come onto the team. Any insights as to what else Discraft has up their sleeve? I mean, they're clearly making this massive move to have you involved. How much other influence do you have in what they're going to move forward with?
A pretty significant amount, I feel like, at least more than I ever have. So that's exciting. I don't want to share too much yet because we still have a long winter. And I'd like to be back on the show later. So if I say everything now, it'll kind of.
Oh, you're
always welcome. I don't care if you have news or not. You're always welcome.
You just want the exposure. Okay.
Yeah. So a little maybe later in December, maybe a little Christmas special or something. But yeah, there's more. I don't want to say too much. But I do feel like I have a really good influence on things right now, so it's exciting. I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to.
I think this goes. I've said this in other places. The first thing, one of the first things I think Discraft should look at, and I know they're revamping their team page. I would love to see a full new coat of paint on that website. I think it's a little dated, and I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, I can tell you they're working on that right now. They actually have someone in there working on their marketing team. Like you saw that ad that you already shared earlier, like that's probably way better than anything they've had recently, with how it was put together. And they do have someone that's working on it. And I think they did feel a little bad that this announcement came out and their site's not ready. But it's supposed to be done by next year.
Yeah, websites are always tricky because they're never done. They're just at some point they're to a point where you can show the public. And I'll give Discraft some credit. They take a lot of heat on online for what some of their stuff, but if you look at some of their most recent commercials, the Discraft is back. Their Heat commercial, I believe the Undertaker commercial, those are all pretty decently done. And I know they've had their their issues in the past, but I think they're on the right track. I'll say that for sure.
Good. I haven't seen them, to be honest.
I've seen him way too many times doing the broadcasts.
Oh, yes, the broadcast ones. Okay, that's why. I see.
So can we just put one of the rumors to rest that you're going to have your own spin-off company that is or isn't owned or not or co-owned by Disc Golf or by Discraft? What? Yeah, can you put some of those, frame it up for us, or as to what we might see in the future? I mean, you're not, somebody, he's becoming 50% owner of the company. I've seen a lot of really outrageous things, some obviously more outrageous than others, but can you put to rest any of the rumors maybe that you've seen or heard that you just think are just completely outrageous?
Yeah, I won't be 50% owner of Discraft. I won't be any owner of Discraft.
Okay.
But there's still some rumors that are probably pretty spot on, and we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I'm not an owner of any part of Discraft.
And is it fair to say that Discraft is not starting another company that then you're gonna own, which doesn't even make sense either?
I'd like to own a company with Discraft, but there's more stuff in the works. I wouldn't say that I'm going to be owning a company with Discraft, but we'll see how things shake out and work out. So I'm not denying it, but I'm not saying it's happening.
You've mentioned that you have this, I'm going to call it a compound, this new place where you're at right now with a disc golf course, and you're looking at putting like a gym there. How supportive has Discraft been of that side for you?
They're very supportive. My goal is to have a course here. I mean, it definitely takes a lot longer than, we're not professional course designers are making it, but it's really just Hannah's dad and I it's really just, let me just be honest, it's really Hannah's dad really just out there working a lot. I haven't been here enough to help him too much, but he's kind of seeing the vision, and we're doing all that we can. Luckily, we don't have to cut a lot. We just have to move a lot of down trees. So goals to have a course, pro shop, and then Hannah and I want to have our own little training center for when, we have close friends that want to get better. We have some other top professionals that want to come and work in the winter and get better. So kind of like a training center where we can work together and get better and push the other top athletes. So they're very supportive. They're really supportive in the disc golf pro shop and the course. And I think I can share this, but the 18 baskets that I shot the 18 under on will be the baskets here at this course.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
That's very cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So I thought it was really cool too when they mentioned they had those still.
How significant is that for you?
I mean, it's awesome. I think it'll be, I think it's really mind blowing that anytime someone plays here, they'll be playing on a piece of history, so I think that's the most significant part to me is if I could do that in some other sport, if I could play basketball where Jordan played, that's kind of how I picture it being is, I don't want to compare myself. I'm not trying to compare myself to Jordan, but just the history aspect of it. It can be
well, cool. And you being a sports fanatic and me just trying to really piece this together, maybe, and this might be for a little bit of the older generations, but we think about the ultimate rivalries in any of the sports, whether you want to call it the Packers and the Bears or whatever. Pick a sport, pick a rivalry. All right. Mm-hmm. Discraft and Innova for decades, before there were dozens of other companies that have come along, Discraft and Innova were the two players in disc golf. When Johnny started, when I started, you threw Discraft, and probably you threw Innova as well, or vice versa. you weren't usually too brand loyal unless, again, you were sponsored. This is huge. You going from Innova over to Discraft, 12 years with Innova, that is. Do you have an analogy? Have you thought about what that means to you, what that means to your legacy, what that means for the sport of disc golf to go from, you know, such a powerhouse to another powerhouse in terms of, and even at that, they're rivals.
Yeah. I haven't honestly really thought about it too much, but just you saying it makes me think of the other players who have done it. You know, like Juliana was Discraft before she went Innova. I think Cam Todd was Innova before he went Discraft, and you know, some other named pros. But I think just the position that I'm in and you know, the moment that it's happening is just kind of bigger than those times. But yeah, I haven't really thought about it too much. I'm just really more excited to kind of just throw new discs and see what I got. And
is there any worry or I don't want to say disappointment, but if you come out of the season, hopefully you do, really hot, and people just go, oh, see, the discs don't matter, it's all Paul, versus you coming out of the season and maybe struggling the first event or two, where then the internet's going to blow up and go, see, he should have never left Innova. Do you think about that? Is there anything, do you have something to prove?
I mean, I'm sure I have something to prove. I think that's why people will be watching, and this is such a big deal, is because, you know, it's people want to wrap it around the discs that make the player rather than the, you know, the players kind of make the discs. But I think a lot of it has to do with comfort in the shots. You know, the comfort in the discs. So, yeah, so I think it's the comfort in the disc. But I'm really excited because there's discs that you hear about, like the Buzz or the Zone, like that just players love. And, like, I'm finally getting the opportunity to throw those and just see if they're really what the hype is about. And I could say that the Zone has made me have a new shot that I've never had before. The Buzz gives me a shot that I've never had before. And then they also have, you know, the overstable mids that I've, you know, kind of thrown with Innova, and then a lot of different fairway feels. Like the discs feel different, but they, you know, they just perform so well.
Well,
so,
if you need some first run buzzes, Terry and I got you
I
covered.
don't need first run buzzes.
Well, if you can get any, nice, I would love them. I've got a stack of them, and I'll always collect more.
Yeah, I got these nice ESP swirly ones, so you should probably try those.
So Paul, here's your opportunity to truly, like, stake a claim and drive this point home for me and everyone else in disc golf media. How long before we can no longer give you the reason or the excuse of, oh, he's still adjusting? Meaning, by July, can we toss that excuse out? By you know, are you going to train and by March 1st we can toss that excuse out? Or do we give you a whole year? How long can, and I'll call it an excuse, but how long can we say, well, he's still adjusting to new plastic?
I'll give you until, like, tomorrow. So wow. I don't want any excuses at all.
Okay.
I don't think there's any excuses.
You don't want that? Okay.
No.
So you're going to be fully, so we will never hear even a rumbling or any kind of notion whatsoever of, oh, I don't feel like I had that shot, or I didn't have the right disc in that situation, or, you know, I'm still kind of learning or adjusting, because I think we would all give you that to a certain point. And I want to know when that deadline is.
I don't want one at all. I mean, I would go play if I could tomorrow in the World Championships with the discs that I have now. I mean, I'm still figuring out which ones I want in my bag, but I would still feel comfortable enough to go out there and compete with everyone. So I think the biggest thing is you'll see disc shuffling. You might see disc shuffling in and out of my bag, but, you know, this disc might come in this tournament and might be out the next one. But I don't think that there will be any adjustment period on playing well.
What will your schedule be like this year? Yeah, and what will your schedule be like this year in the off season? Obviously, you train and you practice and you do all those other things that make you a decent disc golfer. But this year, when you have a whole new bag, when you have a whole new lineup, how much harder will you have to train to be comfortable with the statement you just made?
I think I'm pretty comfortable with the disc that I'm trying now. I don't think it's like rocket science that I'm trying to figure out how a disc flies. It's pretty easy to throw 10 of them and see, what their tendencies are. So it was pretty quick to figure out a force is an overstable distance driver. It was pretty easy to find out that the buzz is extremely straight and you have to throw it flat in order for it to be straight, which was kind of a little learning curve, is that the buzz, it took me like a day to realize, like, if you throw a buzz with a slight hyzer, it's not going to flip up and fly straight. You have to throw it flat and it's going to fly straight. If you put a little hyzer on it, it's going to finish with a little hyzer. If you put a little ante on it, it's going to finish with ante. That was the learning curve it took me to figure out a buzz. Because most discs with a bead, like as you beat them in and things like that, you can start with a hyzer and they'll flip to flat and then finish left. These you have to throw literally dead, like flat, dead straight. I figured that disc out already.
Yeah, the buzz, it takes a while to beat in, more so than other discs, before you can throw it with a hyzer and have it stand up flat.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, so plenty of people are asking to follow that up. You were down there, you shot the promo video with Jomez, and then that's also part of a building the bag or an in the bag series. When can people anticipate that coming out? That's probably one of the number one questions out here. When will we see that? And when that drops versus your first tournament, do you assume not many of those discs will change?
I think the building the bag, I think you just said that. So, filmed that with Jomez. But like you said, like we said, it's building right now. There are some staples in there, like those 4 signature discs. Those are staples in the bag already. And other ones I'm still trying to figure out what will be in the bag by the time the season starts. But it's dwindling and getting smaller as the days go on, and finding out what I will have in my bag by the time the season starts. So that's the whole point of building the bag. So I think it'll be out before the end of the year. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see when Jomez is ready to put all that out, or Discraft, whoever's doing it.
Do you feel like is it a fair statement to say you could go to Discraft and say, hey, I really love the consistency of this roach, but I really like the bottom of this Challenger. Can you somehow make that happen? Are those the types of things that you'll be talking to them in the next few months?
Yeah, they have the capabilities of doing all that. I think where we are now, that we could do that if we wanted. I don't think that's extremely necessary yet. But yeah, those are definitely possibilities to where I could go with them and kind of say, hey, is this something that we can do? You think this will work? Will this be popular? So they have the ability to do that.
You've become, somewhat famous, and I don't think I'm being a jerk by saying this or disrespecting Innova in any way. I think the Nova, the success of the Nova is largely based on you throwing it. That's a statement I believe. Would you consider that a staple in your bag, or do you feel like you've easily adjusted and you can replace that disc?
It's replaceable. After USDGC, I put a Color Glow AVR in there, and I don't think I threw a bad shot with it once. So it is replaceable. I do miss, like, when I started throwing that Color Glow, it was kind of like I miss beating in a lower end plastic into understable, and just watching the progression of the flight and kind of just getting used to it, to where Nova never really changed. But I the one I was throwing was from like 2013 or 2014 when they first came out, and they're a little different than the new ones. I couldn't get comfortable to the new ones, so I don't really know how they flew by the end of it. By the time I left.
Okay. Now, East Coast and West Coast for Innova have I think many people that have worked with them, myself included. Those are technically 2 separate companies. you probably dealt a little bit with the West Coast in living in California, growing up there. Obviously, you live on the East Coast now. You talked about Jonathan Poole. Yet there's marketing and influence that probably comes in from the West Coast. So there's kind of, I'll say there's a lot of people to interact with. Discraft being in Michigan and really just one or two main points of contact. Do you think that will help or hurt any of the communication that you have with them?
I think it'll help.
See that as an advantage?
Now I can. Yeah, I think it'll help. I can be closer with those people, and they're just a phone call or text message away. Which, with Innova, it was kind of that way as well. But sometimes emails work better. Sometimes you might get a response 2 days later. But it was just a little slower on that end. But they're busy. They have 200, 300 players that they have to focus on as well, and then they have 2 warehouses, one on the east, one on the west, that they have to ship this out left and right to all these places. So I think they're obviously bigger, and they have a lot more on their plate. So my relationship with Discraft and the people up there, I think will be a lot closer, so we can work together on a lot more things.
And is that part of what you said when you mentioned earlier? You talked about maybe growth or things, bigger things that you can do. Is that kind of factor into that decision or that statement?
Yeah, I think they've kind of showcased that they believe in their players, not just in the aspect of playing, but the visions that they have and the dreams that they have, and I think Nate and Val are just a good example of that.
So some of the things that we've seen you do, besides winning those big tournaments and stuff, working with the Innova team, working with the junior side, is that a role that you may find or fulfill or be part of with Discraft, and how do you see that relationship or some of those roles and tasks? How do you see some of those unfolding?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know the vision on that aspect yet. I think the Innova junior team was a great start. When it started the first 2 years, it was really good. It was awesome. And, seeing some of those junior players now are competing in the pro ranks, even after it's only been a few years. And it just kind of lost connection. And I don't think it ever lost like the interest to do it, but things just kind of got too busy to focus on it. And, so it kind of just got difficult, and then someone else got brought in. I don't really have a reason that it kind of fell off on my end. I just got too busy, and yeah, I mean, I think it's a great concept. I think it's good for the sport and kind of pushes juniors into the collegiate level and things like that. So we'll see. I don't have any plans or have heard any plans of doing it yet at Discraft.
Now, when you
I was going to say, do you have any plans for bringing back any of the McBeast challenges? Is that on the agenda in the next year or two?
I want to do something. I don't know if it'll be McBeast challenges, but you guys just had the Next Gen tour. I think you guys were just at it filming, and I would love to be somehow be a part of that and incorporate that, because I think that's more than just a McBeast challenge. It could be an event where it pushes something even further, and especially with having a course here, hopefully sooner rather than later, to where we can actually host those kind of events. And McBeast challenges too would be great, but McBeast challenges are really nice when you're going to areas that you're not normally at, or driving through areas. So those can also be included, as well as hosting events here, which is a big goal of mine.
And we know, because you're on your phone right now, we know that area has pretty decent cell coverage. So if you're ever looking to do live, we have a few free weekends.
Yeah, surprisingly, we do have good cell service here. I don't think Hannah would agree, but yeah, we don't have Wi-Fi here. We don't really need it yet. We're not here enough to make that an expense.
It's all right. You can't afford it. We know. So, no, in all honesty, I really love, we had that conversation before tonight got started. I love and appreciate the fact that, you recognize that you guys are traveling a lot and having a monthly expense such as Wi-Fi. If you're not there enough to fully utilize it, it's great that you're still clearly have your head on, you're money conscious, and you think about, some of those things that a lot of people may just assume you don't care about because it's, only $50 a month or whatever. But being money conscious and still being smart about it is a good way to go. And I can very much applaud that. A couple of years ago, when you were looking into and you had this conversation with Innova and Adidas, and you were talking about sponsorships, it felt like there was a really big push by Innova to be very, I'll say, almost exclusive to what their offerings were. We saw you using an Innova bag. Your relationship with Grip at that time all but came to an end. And we saw that pretty much everything was Innova. You were really focused on having them as your primary sponsor and then using them for as many things as were practical. Do you see any new relationships budding or possibly being on a tangent? And a lot of people are suggesting Grip again, or anyone else. Do you see that some of those maybe resurging, as to use the Discraft term, a surge, as coming back, or new ones developing?
Yeah, I actually just talked to Grip on Saturday morning, I believe, before I signed my Discraft contract.
Exclusive.
So, yeah. So I haven't signed anything with Grip. I have not. Hannah's over there laughing. She heard you. But I have not signed anything with Grip. But the goal is, we're in negotiations, and I'm super excited to, potentially carry a Grip again. So.
And Grip, working with Discraft in the last couple of years, we saw Grip have a collaboration, have some Nate and Val bags, along with a Buzz bag and some other stuff. So all of that seems to be kind of in those lines. So speaking of negotiations, contract, media, I mean, last week we obviously talked about it on our show, and there was a lot of other follow-up articles and podcasts and such. The world of media in disc golf, which you're very closely tied to, what's your take on how things have kind of unfolded in the last, we'll say even in the last week?
I don't know. I watched that podcast. Actually, Hannah told me to watch that podcast as it was going on, and it was pretty depressing to see you guys get fired on your own show. So.
You're not going to come on and fire us now, are you? I mean,
no, but it was. I remember hearing all this stuff, with last year with the Jomez and Jomez and Disc Golf Pro Tour weren't getting along, and it didn't seem like they were very wanted for how much they were doing. And then I was surprised to hear it happen with you guys. So it was a big surprise because I didn't see them going that way. You guys were already filming under the Disc Golf Pro Tour banner, so it was a pretty big surprise. With the Jomez, they were sticking to Jomez. You guys were actually doing it under their channel. So, yeah, it was a big surprise. But, yeah, I don't want to put any judgment on it until I actually hear what Steve has to say. Because I was approached by a few players. I'm like, what should we do? What should we do? I'm just like, well, let's hear what he has to say. Jomez hasn't complained. I haven't heard anything about their plans or any complaints about it, because maybe it'll open up more tournaments for them and more promotional work. Maybe they can work closer with companies now, but still get the national tours and majors. So I don't know. I don't want to pass judgment. Nobody's talked to me about it.
Well, and I've got a whole nother line of questions, but the first one that jumps out is Jomez has very clearly been tied to Innova. I'll just say Innova. They've been tied to Innova in a very, very tight-knit way. Having Innova sponsorship, having Innova ads and commercials. I think it's just a coincidence that both Nate and Big Germ happen to be Innova players, but obviously they're a great commentary team. What is this going to mean in that landscape? Because clearly you moving to Discraft, clearly Jomez producing this commercial, or I'm sorry, this announcement for you. What does that mean to someone like, I'll just say to Jomez? What does that mean for them? who's been so tied with Innova over these last couple of years?
Sounds like more jobs, more opportunities for them. I don't know if they've ever done anything with Discraft before this, and to me, it doesn't feel any different. Like, they're still the Jomez guys to me, and I'm, still just filming with them. There's never been a company bias there or anything like that with them. So I just see more opportunities for them too. Sorry, I see your face there. Like, obviously they've worked with Innova, but I've never, like when I worked with them with Discraft this last week, or in Innova before, like no companies were really brought up. So that's what I meant by that. But yeah, I don't see any different more than opportunities for them to do more projects now.
And it'll be great. And I think as all the media companies move forward, I think this opens some doors as to where individual companies are aligned, and if it's with crews or if it's with events, and that continues. This is a much bigger than even your conversation as to, tournaments have sponsorships, tours have sponsorships, camera crews have sponsorships, and players have sponsorships. Yeah. So all of those things can make for a really big ball of mess on any given day. And when it's great, it's great. And when it's not, that's a really big ball of challenge or mess.
So you guys,
I think we'll continue to see that unfold.
So you guys say that you guys are sponsored rather than hired? Is that what you're saying?
No, we were hired by the Pro Tour.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure because Terry said media have sponsorship, so I wasn't sure.
Correct. Well, we've seen in the past where like CCDG seemed to have a longer term deal with MVP. Jomez really looked like last year they had a longer term deal with Innova. And then I think that, as you said, that ran into an issue when we came to the Ledgestone, which is a hugely Discraft sponsored event. I think there was some heads butting behind the scenes as to whether or not they should be able to come on and have their advertising, and it obviously became a mess. But as far as Smashbox goes, we've always kind of been under the impression of we would rather not align with any particular manufacturer. We'd rather work with everybody.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, that makes it easier for you guys to get hired.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully that's what Jomez is seeing in this upcoming year, and we'll see what happens with them and CCDG and PSP and Gateway and whomever else is out there. So I'm hoping that in the next, I would hope 2 days or so, we do see a media plan from the Pro Tour, because I think that's going to make or break a lot of the decisions that were made in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of makes me question, do these sponsors that sponsor these tournaments and wanted to sponsor a Disc Golf Pro Tour, like, does that make them question their sponsorship and things like that? Was a media plan in place before they jumped on board, or did this happen after?
Yeah, we'll find out.
So you're obviously very in tune with the media. You've worked with all of the crews in some capacity, whether it's champs versus chumps, lots of stuff with Jomez, stuff with us, whatever. What would be kind of your ideal setting or big picture concept? How do you see it unfolding, like you personally? Because this affects your pocketbook, directly and indirectly.
I think just the more videos there are, the better. It's easy to say you want to be on Jomez coverage because they have the most subscribers, so it's going to be the most eyes. But it's always great to have the live broadcast because people like to be in touch, right? They want to know what's going on, when it's going on. So I think those were the best combinations that we've had so far when you guys and Jomez were on the same card, because they still get their post-production views, but you still get your numbers coming in right then and there. So that seemed like the best combination from what I've seen so far. I didn't get to see the Fulcrum media and all the USDGC stuff because I was playing.
And winning.
And your wife was interviewing you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how much does the media, and we'll just put it out there because I think there's rumors that have even circulated, how much does the media impact your decisions? Will it? If Jomez is covering event X and a Pro Tour event is going on somewhere else, does the media and the viewership, how much does that influence you, if at all? Would you consider going elsewhere?
It can, yeah. it definitely can. You know, like a Memorial would be hard to skip if Jomans. I mean, you know, that would be a tough one to skip without Jomans being there. But something like that's unestablished, like the Portland Open or whatever that is, like, you know, if they have the Portland Open and then there's an A tier in Montana, but Jomez is going to be filming, like that could be one I could see doing. You know, I don't know if that's a real thing, but I'm just throwing something out there. But you know, some of these unestablished first time events could be hit with something like that if Jomez decided to run something the same weekend, not run something, but be a part of another tournament the same weekend. So it's a possibility. I think there's a lot of other top pros that may think about it.
All right, I think that's fair enough.
So yeah, and not to sidestep too far, and obviously I know we're talking to you, and your wife is an individual in her own right. But does this create any kind of situation? You now moving on from your long-term sponsorship with Innova over to Discraft. Obviously, we've seen couples that are married or dating that have different sponsorship, you know, within the household. Can you give us any exclusive hints, any insider info? What's Hannah's plans in 2019?
I mean, she's an ambassador for Innova. I would never influence her to make a decision or do anything like that. So she's an ambassador, and now the way that ambassadors work, I believe, with Innova is they are June or July to June the next year. Because the way that Innova, I keep saying this, Innova has so many players that if they were to do all their agreements in the off season, there'd be way too many to do. So they've kind of cut it in half to where ambassadors are split in the middle of the year and players are at the end of the year. So she's in the middle of the year type thing. So July to June. So she's with Innova till at least June, as far as I know.
Interesting. How much do you two talk about these? I mean, you're obviously you're married, but what are some of those conversations like when you're talking? Because this is your livelihood. This is financially, obviously, very impactful to your family and your life. And then having her being a player herself. How much do you guys talk about your major decision?
At first, when it was coming up, we would talk about it a lot. We would talk about it a lot when it was first happening.
Oh, your audio kind of cut out,
Paul. Did she say she hates that question?
No, she said she hated it when we were first talking about it because she didn't. I mean, she was in the same boat with.
Oh, we lost Paul.
Oh, she pulled the plug on it. She's like,
it's like no,
she's like, you are done talking about this.
Hold on a second.
We'll see if he can come back.
That might. It's hard to tell if that was on our side or his. I'm gonna give him a call right back here.
All right, as you're doing that, I'm going to try and catch up on the board. I know everyone wants to know what's in his bag, and to be fair, that's a fair question, but
all right, is it working now?
Yeah, we're good. We're back. I don't know if that was Hannah pulling the plug or something on our end. So
maybe, yeah, she hated it, so they cut it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So she's right. Sometimes the service disappears, but
wait, what?
So where did it cut out at?
You were just basically talking.
You said at first you were, as to whether or not how much you guys were talking about it, and she said she hated it at first.
Okay, yeah, she hated it at first, and then we kind of just talked about it more, and I was kind of like, no, I think this is a good thing. We should keep going and talking about it and seeing, you know, what each side kind of has to offer, and if there's any movement on Innova's side, because I've been there so long, and then she was kind of like, just started to trust me more and more as it went on, and then when the decision was made, she was fully on board with where I was going, and yeah, so it, like I said, she hated it at first, but we talked through it and kind of figured it out as it got closer, and then she was happy for me because I was excited about it, and yeah, now we're here.
Okay. Lots to talk about the off season and people moving. Obviously, that's something that's really important to you because of these sponsorships and what players are getting or not getting, and you're trying to help move that needle. what have been some of the things that jump out at you during this offseason? Any of the players, you know, and the contracts, what's been jumping out at you?
What's been jumping out at me? Nothing. I mean, I know a lot, so nothing really jumped out at me.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I think the Ricky thing was a little surprising because there was no movement or rumor until after. There was no rumor of him where he was going until after my decision was made. So that was a little interesting. But other than that,
are you saying some money opened up at Innova? Is that what you're telling us?
I think Nate took it all. I'm just kidding.
He's got to buy that house now. He's flying everywhere. He's getting rid of the RV.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know how expensive the flying part is. So he better get his travel covered. But no, I don't know. Yeah, it was a surprise. But I then again, I never knew how long Ricky's contract was and things like that. Because with DGI, I kind of had to know the people that were planning on leaving and things like that. It was kind of just, you know, you'd hear things here and there, but I never heard anything about Ricky. So I'm just guessing.
Okay, I'll follow.
I'm guessing he didn't communicate with DGI. That's my guess.
I will follow up a very specific Ricky question. You getting offered $1 million plus for 4 years. Ricky Wysocki, a two-time world champ. We'll keep everyone up to speed here, but a two-time world champ. How much is Ricky worth?
Do you want me to compare him to a player or money-wise?
I'd love to compare him to you. Mainly because for the last 3 to 5 years, it's Ricky and Paul. You guys back and forth 1-2, 1-2. So I'll just ask you, how much is Ricky worth?
Is Ricky worth half of what you are because of the world titles, or is he worth a little more than half because they're more recent?
It's hard to put a number on it because you'd have to go by years, but I think he's on like a Germ level. I think he's a little lower than Nate. But you know, with the way that Germ does commentary, I think Germ's publicly known more than Ricky. So I put him right there with Germ. So whatever Germ gets.
So you're definitely putting an emphasis on, you know, as we've discussed, the media side. I mean, there's world titles, there's winning, there's, you know, being tied or
and popularity
being the number one
too.
player in the world.
I think
and popularity. Okay.
And I think that's that whole media obligation and things like that. It's more than just playing. Yeah, I think there's more to it than just playing and winning world titles and things like that. So I mean, world titles definitely help. You know, it puts you in the spotlight, but then it's like, what are you going to do once you're there?
We talked about it real briefly earlier about the numbers that you were never really given with Innova. Are you going to get those numbers with Discraft? Are you going to know? Are they going to maybe give you a breakdown of, hey, this month we sold 1,200 McBeth discs?
Yeah, they've been very open with things so far. Just kind of with the announcement and then the rumors of, oh, he's going Discraft. So they're very open with that. There was no numbers shared. I didn't need any numbers then, and I don't want any numbers anytime soon. You know, until I'm actually on Discraft. But yeah, I think they're going to be a lot more open than my previous sponsor.
Because I think that part of, as you said, part of your value is how much, as we've said in the past, how much plastic you can push for a manufacturer. I mean, that's your prime value, whether you're a Simon or a Germ or a Nate or you or Ricky. And I think with you guys having that information, that's really valuable to your potential new sponsors, old sponsors. There's a good look that you could look at and to say, hey, 2 years ago I was selling this many. Now I'm selling this many. Yep. I'm worth this much more. I think that would help a lot with negotiations.
Yeah, I think you're right on a small scale version because I believe signature discs aren't the definition of how much someone should get paid, because the influence that like myself or Nate would have is we're not just selling a Sexton Firebird or whatever signature disc I have. We're selling Roadrunners to beginners. We're selling Makos to, beginners and DX AVRs or whatever. So that impact is further than just a signature disc. So to say a player's value is just off the disc that sells with their name is probably undercutting them, and I think a player's value is more than that. And that's where the media side comes in and the value of a player, because how much do they impact a company rather than just a disc number?
A great point.
So a lot of people are asking on the board, you've had your, I've seen you wear Nikes. I've seen you, of course, with your Adidas contract. Any shoe deals in the works for anyone whatsoever? And is that a DGI venture, if so?
Yeah, it looks like you're sporting New Balance recently.
Yeah, New Balance are the ones I'm liking right now. There is nothing in the works as of right now. There are some connections, but nothing has gotten further than getting those connections. So we'll see. I really like New Balance. I think they're really comfortable. I have a waterproof version, but it's not the greatest. But if anything ever worked out with New Balance, that would be the first thing I would like to work on with them and get a better design. But those are just the shoes I'm liking right now because I can train in them, go to the gym, play disc golf, wear them out because they're like really nice. So for me, it's really easy to travel with them because I don't need as many pairs. But when I had like Adidas, I need like a pair or two of disc golf shoes, one waterproof, one non-waterproof. Then I need something if I wanted to go out to dinner because I don't want to wear those. So it was kind of hard to have so many pairs of shoes to travel with. But if you're in an RV, it's a little easier, but flying and stuff. But now with the New Balance, it's pretty easy because one shoe does all that.
Sounds like a ringing endorsement for New Balance. Just saying, you should be getting paid to say that. So what?
But
aside from
the same thing, so I don't want to.
Aside from the all too obvious, disc you'll be throwing, what will be the number one difference for you for next year? Like whether it's in your lifestyle, your travel, your tournament play, whatever that might be. Aside from the discs that are in your bag that you're throwing, what will be the number one thing that will be different in 2019?
Traveling with a dog. That'll probably be the biggest difference. But back in an RV, so that's going to be a big change.
Really?
This year was flying everywhere, getting cars, but next year I'll have an RV. So. Yeah.
Can you elaborate? I'm sorry, I didn't know anything about that. Can you elaborate? Like the RV you had before with the? I mean, I'm assuming it'll have a different wrap on it. Is that a fair statement?
What was that?
I said, yeah, we kicked them out.
Oh, no. The truck and trailer that I had originally was sold to Jeff Corns, who's now Discmania. Well, he's been with Discmania, so it's wrapped Discmania. Anytime you see the big Discmania trailer, that was formerly mine. But now I will be traveling in a Discraft RV, which isn't purchased yet, but, we settled on a model. Now it's just getting that one, and it will be... it's not going to be exclusively Discraft, so sponsor-wise, from the sounds of it.
So, but it will be you and the dog and Hannah? Is that? Am I putting my clues together?
Yep.
Huh. Have you? Okay. Is that news? Has that been known?
That we're traveling together in an RV, or just traveling together?
Yes, the RV, mainly the RV component.
I mean, it wasn't put out there publicly, but I mean, it hasn't been like a kept secret.
Okay. Here's a question.
Go ahead, Johnny.
As far as contracts go, do you think that, or is there any worry that with the larger contracts for the touring players, we're going to see a scale back of your more local sponsorship? The guys who maybe don't tour as much, but maybe have more influence locally. I mean, for us, back when we were younger, it was Barry Schultz, and he toured occasionally before he became a big-time golfer. Is there anything to worry about there?
Are you saying larger as in years or as in pay?
As in pay, because I mean, I know you're an outlier, but when we see bigger names like Sexton and do you think someone like Innova, who sponsors like 200 players, is going to start maybe cutting off the bottom when they have to pay these other players bigger money?
I think they should cut. I think they should start cutting to a smaller number, regardless if they're paying more at the top. Just because that's a. I don't know. I feel like it's a lot, but it's not my business. It's not for me to say. But I think the higher pay is just showing the growth of the sport more than anything, more than cutting off these lower players and paying the top more. I think it's just the growth of the sport that's paying more towards the for the top players, top touring players.
Okay.
And going back to the Brody thing, as Brody was telling Simon and I that he believes disc golf is bigger than Ultimate now, and those were his words. So
I think that's probably true. I mean, I think you probably have Charlie from the Ultra World podcast was saying this, and he brought up a really good point. You don't need anybody to play disc golf. You can go up by yourself. Yep. You want to play Ultimate, you need at least probably 5 other people if you want to go 3-on-3 if you're lucky. And so I think disc golf lends itself to have more players play. I don't necessarily know which is bigger as far as media exposure right now. I think Ultimate still has us beat there, but as far as sheer number of players, I think, disc golf probably has them beat.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's easy to film Ultimate compared to disc golf. Mm-hmm. So, but, then again, if you go on YouTube, you might be able to find more disc golf videos than Ultimate videos.
Yeah.
I think that's just personally, to use your wife's term, Paul, my hot take would be that I think disc Ultimate is still bigger than disc golf. And I think when you're talking about the numbers of players and the people, I think we all have a little bit of a tunnel vision because we're so heavily involved in disc golf that, it's kind of one of those things like when you're doing it, it is the coolest and it's the fastest growing and it's the greatest thing in the world. I think that might be a little bit narrow-minded in not recognizing just how huge Ultimate is and how many different places that it's played on so many different levels, ranging from middle school to college, then to other recreational or semi-pro versions. But I guess we'll see. And the numbers will continue to come in as Discraft clearly making a really big statement here by saying, yes, we own the Ultimate market. And now we're going to take a bigger swing at the disc golf market. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Well, and that's why I said that, those were Brody's words, not mine. I didn't make that assumption. So that was coming from an Ultimate player's mouth.
And I will totally agree with you. Ultimate, I think, is a million times easier to film, as I think Charlie had mentioned to Johnny and I. Yeah, you're talking about a field. Yes, you still got to follow a disc around, but it's moving a lot slower. And it's all on, essentially the size of a soccer or football field, even if you have 4 or 5 cameras. Yeah. I wish we could cover Ultimate because it seems like it'd be cakewalk at this point. So then again, who knows? What do we know, Johnny? What jobs do we have? I mean, come on. Anyway, Paul, do you have anything? Do you have anything anything else that maybe we didn't set you up or ask you directly about? Any open thoughts you want to share with the disc golf community at large? I mean, you have a lot of people that listen to you, not just because of this big contract and being such a good player, but you're relatively vocal. You're one of our more vocal pros on social media. Do you have any other big messages you need to share with the world or thoughts to leave us with?
It's a tough one. I just don't think people should be scared to make a change. I think that's the biggest thing. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm excited about it. And if it's something that excites you, if it's something that excites you, go for it. That's where I'm at. So other than that, I don't really have anything. Thanks for watching, and thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. And I feel like we would be doing a disservice if we didn't at least rattle off the 5 to 8 discs that you can all but guarantee that you assume will be in your bag. Rattle those off. People are been clamoring them for all night.
No.
What are they?
No.
No?
Nope.
All right. You're going to tick off the whole internet. That's fine.
I am going to take the blame for this
one.
I
don't care.
Here's what I'm just going to say. I don't think we need to have any information on what Paul is going to be throwing. Unless you happen to watch our podcast, you might get a clue as to what is in store for Paul. So, Paul, I hope that you have a...
January 2019.
January 2019.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have you back. Then you can tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
all right,
maybe they'll get Discraft. Maybe they can say more than me. So.
Yeah, we'll get Bob Giulio on here. We'll make him spill the beans.
There you go. Yeah. Don't put it on me.
We like to get players in trouble with their sponsors. It's one of the things we do.
Yeah. It's worked.
Yeah,
that's why there's such a big off-season this year.
All right, Paul. Well, thank you for joining us. Thanks for sharing your insights and your time with us. We know you're a sought-after man trying to answer all these questions for everyone, and we appreciate you taking the time with our Smashies to give us everything you got. And we look forward to 2019. And I look forward to not giving you any leeway on your new disc and your new lineup, your confidence. We love it. And looking forward to seeing how you attack the next season.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Johnny. And yeah, I don't want any leeway, so don't give me any.
You won't get it.
We will be mean. We will be mean to you. I promise.
All right.
All right. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Paul.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night. Take care. All right. I mean,
he announced it.
Truly a bold statement. No, that's a bold statement because everyone, to a degree, has to say, no matter how good you are, we always say it's the archer, not the arrow. And I firmly believe that. However, he has been throwing one brand of disc for more than 12 years. And I was prepared to give him 3 or 6 months, maybe even a year. And I would say that of any player. And it's not obviously him, but he doesn't want any. And
I don't blame him because he doesn't want to be that guy that has an excuse. Seemingly he's never been that person.
No.
But I've said this online. I think you can hand him any putter, and within about 10 minutes, he's going to be hitting a majority of them inside of 30 feet. I think you could hand him most drivers, and when you go out to someplace like the Memorial or Vegas, that's nothing to him. I mean, overstable, stable, understable. Great. There's not a tree in sight. You're going to see... It's when you start getting those 40 and 50 footers is where you're going to really see his comfort level with whatever putter he's throwing. And there was a post out on one of the social medias that he was using a roach for some of the Jomez stuff. It was signed. It was left somewhere as a hidden Easter egg, I think out at Turner Park. So someone found that and posted it. So that's kind of cool. So that might be something that he's throwing, or that could just be something fun that they did. But really, I think, as it was mentioned on the board, when it gets to the later half of the year and we start getting into more wooded golf, that's when you're going to see how comfortable he is with his drivers and his mids. Can he hit the line? Does he have a disc he's really, really comfortable with? How many 50 footers is he going to hit? How comfortable is he with a specific type of plastic? Because I've said forever, like I said, you and I think you give us any disc, and within a little while, we're almost as good with that disc inside of 30 feet as any other disc. It's just that is so close for these players that it almost doesn't matter. It's everything outside that circle.
Well, Hannah chimes in and makes a clarification for the world, says those are the discs that were used in the trick shot video. They have no significance to Paul. So, she's stating, whether they were left behind or whatever the case, or intentionally, it sounds like he was really just doing that as a fun giveaway and not so much trying to leave a trail or set of hints. But I believe, I'm going to backtrack a little though, and I said I do believe that at one point Paul had told me, I'm gonna out him a little, and he did say he liked the feel of the Roach, the feel and or flight. It may or may not be specifically 100% to his liking or feel yet, but that's where I had asked, will they modify things to his liking, and maybe even then have a new disc or
I think that's what you're going to see. Because
see that as well.
Because the putter is such a it's
delicate.
so delicate to everybody's touch. And Paul has something that he's used to, that he's used for at least 5 or 6 years with whatever current putter I think he's been handling. I'd be willing to bet
Omega Super Soft.
Omega Super Soft. I'd be willing to bet that we see a new disc, one of the new pieces of plastic. The first one we see, I bet you, is going to be a putter. It just makes the most sense. That is his new, the first in his line is that it's going to be some sort of custom putter made up of whatever. It's going to be a see me throw it APX glow something or other. I don't know, but
yeah,
the Z putter. They're bringing back the Z putter for our friend Steve Held.
Yeah, probably not.
They're not, but I think that's going to be the first disc is a putter released. I'm going to go to Vegas and put a bet on that.
Yeah, and speaking of Vegas, obviously one of the early events, someone had chimed in. It might have been, I don't know if it was, I don't recall who it was. Somebody chimed in on the board saying that an event like the Wintertime Open might have even more views than normal, knowing that Paul McBeth, that might be his first really big event of the 2019 season, and his good friend John Tompkins, the tournament director, and it being a historic event out in California, it stands on its own. But knowing that Paul may or may not be associated and or debuting there.
He needs some revenge. It was like last year was the first time he lost in like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. 8 out of 9 or something like that.
Something like that.
You're right. Yeah. So incredible. What's interesting to me, and this is a very generic statement of all of our sponsored players this year, and there's a negative connotation to the term fanboy that's set out there. There's fans, and then there's maybe really excitable fans, and then there's fans that would take a bullet for one of our players. It'll be interesting to see the transitions that take place with all of our players this year. Ricky Wysocki leaving Latitude, and there was a conversation about that at the Next Gen finale this weekend. Wherever Ricky Wysocki lands, will he move a needle there? Will anyone who've become accustomed to harps and become accustomed to the Felon or whatever other disc that Ricky is really synonymous with, will you see a difference in sales? And same with Paul. Will the Destroyer sell that much less? It's clearly a favorite of many pros, and Paul happened to be one of those. Did having his name on it, how much will that affect Innova's bottom line?
I'm going to buy just as many Destroyers next year as I did this year.
Exactly. There you go.
One of the things, real quick, I would feel remiss if I didn't do this right now. Thanks everybody watching. We had like 500 or 650 viewers tonight. If you love what you're seeing tonight, if you like this type of interview, this style of thing, you can support us on patreon.com. Patreon, patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. For as little as $1 a month, you can be entered into our weekly giveaway, which we missed last week. So we'll be giving away 2 things this week. Every dollar helps us. It helps us provide coverage and podcasts and pay for storage and servers and all that good stuff that a podcast requires, all the live things. It helps us bring disc golf into your house just as it gets brought into my basement right now. So once again, that's patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV if you haven't heard it before. So I wanted to get that out while we still have a decent amount of viewers now that Paul's gone.
Wow, you're so clever. That is so clever. Well, and as you just alluded to, though, we have a giveaway every week, or the equivalent of every week when it's all said and done. And usually it's even more than that. Tonight, for instance, I am in Australia, so they graciously worked with me, and I've got an Australian Disc Golf Championships disc to be given away. The Choice is Flooring Australian Disc Golf Championships presented by Nature to Nourish. So thank you guys so much. This, conveniently, if you want to throw like Paul McBeth, I think I've got a zone here for you. Is that what I was told this was? This is a zone. So I got one of those available. Thank you to all the gracious hosts and people that I'm going to be working with, Luke and Todd and Neil and King and all those guys. I'll be giving this away as part of our Patreon giveaway. So
right, and the other thing I'm going to give away is a disc member box. So one of our boxes that's worth about $50. You can sign up and be a member of discmember.com. We'll talk more about them in a little while, probably for the after show. But they just announced their December box, so Merry Christmas to everybody. And we'll talk a little bit about what's in that and what you can get a hold of that for. So just stay tuned.
All right. Well, so I guess my question to you then, Johnny, would be did outside the RV, which I know was news to both of us, was there anything truly shocking that Paul let us in on? Or maybe what were some of your biggest takeaways from what he was telling us?
I don't think there was anything shocking. I don't think he had a great answer for and maybe he just wasn't prepared for it, because I know I sprung it on him, about whether or not we're going to see some of maybe the local pros get cut when the upper pros, the touring pros, get more money, if that's going to be a shift in the dynamics. And that's a manufacturer decision. They have to look at where are they going to get their most bang for their buck. Is it sponsoring your local player that's going to be turning on all these new players to things, or is it or are they going to have more influence when you give more money to a Nate Sexton or whomever it is? So I think there was that. Other than that, I don't think there was anything really earth-shattering. It was a lot of stuff I expected. But then again, it's hard for me because you and I are both slightly in the know, and we've heard things, rumors and whispering. So it's, yeah. I am a little, not shocked, but I am surprised to hear that an RV's coming back into town.
Yeah, and Hannah, who remains on the board, said she's not sure why that's so weird either. And I'll say I don't think it was so much weird as it is just kind of news to us, because that wasn't, we've seen that transition from him going in an RV. I'll back that up, in a trailer, and then ultimately to an RV, and then to flying. And it's just kind of a shift within that family dynamic is really what it is. And it's something that he's obviously done before, but to see him going back to that method, I think that is an indicator of something, whether it allows him to practice more or hit more events or hit less events or have more time off the course. I mean, there's a lot of things that can factor into being on the road more, but being in an RV as opposed to flying to these events. So
he's breaking my model.
That shakes out.
He's breaking my model of how a disc golfer progresses from vehicle to van to RV to flying. Paul has now stepped down. So maybe once you get so big that you need to, I don't know, you recycle or something, but he's wrecking my whole scale. He's just throwing the whole thing off. So one of the things I was kind of surprised to hear him say was when you asked him the question about Ricky, about what's Ricky's value, and how he looks at that as Ricky is probably valued around what Big Germ is because of Big Germ's media exposure. So I don't know if that is if what that says about Ricky or Germ, if that's a push up for Germ. Because
do you agree with that?
It's hard. Honestly, it's hard for me to say, because I've always said who moves more plastic, whether it's not, and as he said, not necessarily Tour Series, but who is pushing that out. And you have to argue that Germ does that as well as almost anybody other than Sexton. So I personally don't, I would put, no offense to Germ, but I would probably put Ricky above Germ, but maybe not quite as valuable as Sexton, or maybe right on that same level as Sexton. Right? It's got to be close, because I think obviously Sexton is the voice. Sexton is kind of the face. He's the captain now of Innova. So to have Ricky as a two-time world champ, clearly he can move plastic. We've seen it with the harp. And it's going to be interesting. It's really going to be interesting. and to say that maybe Innova freed up some cash. And we don't know where Ricky's going, but the rumors are he's going to Innova.
Well, and there was no rumor confirmed or denied as to Ricky joining Team Discraft as well.
No. I mean, it could be, he could be going to Discraft. He could be going back to Prodigy. He could be going to DD. I mean, he could be going to Legacy. Legacy needs that top player. Steve Rico now is a master. He doesn't count. So just in general, I thought it was an interesting perspective from Paul.
I totally agree with it. I'm not sure that I would. I agree with that. It was an interesting perspective. I don't agree with exactly the assessment that he gave. I feel like that was a little bit on the not a little bit. I feel like that was on the low side, but it is interesting to see his perspective. And I think the bigger takeaway from that is not just, like you said, the moving of the plastic, but also how much the media presence in a lot of different forms. I mean, we have to be real that there's the media presence in being a commentator, the media presence of simply being on video and being featured, which I don't think Ricky is ever necessarily short of doing, because he's clearly featured plenty in actual tournament play. And then there's your Instagram presence, your Facebook presence, your YouTube, Twitter, all those other different types of presence. They all get factored in there. Yeah, I'm excited. And then I think too, another point or another channel or avenue of that is Ricky out there doing the dynamic doubles type situations, doing the throw with the pro type situations, the amount of Ricky Wysocki clinics that have been available throughout this last year, which seem to be very well attended. So I think it's an interesting take by Paul. I personally think that that maybe he undervalued Ricky, but again, that's why I asked him. That's his opinion. And Paul's never really been shy about giving opinions. And I think to have the reason why I went with Ricky is because they're so closely tied skill level wise and results wise. I mean, they're number 1 and 2 ranking going back and forth, or being as consistent as it's been over these last few years. So, I don't even feel like it's a fair question to ask that of, Simon or Eagle, because Simon and Eagle have not consistently been there week in and week out for the last 5 years.
So
Paul and Ricky have been.
Let me put you on the spot. You own a major company with infinite amount of money. You've seen that Paul McBeth just got 4 years, $1 million plus incentives. You're trying to steal Ricky from whomever he's at, re-sign him, sign him. What is your number for Ricky?
The only reason why I hesitate to ask or to answer that is because I think about timing, because exactly what Paul is trying to do. Paul has set a bar.
Yeah.
All right. Paul has set a bar, 1 million, 4 years. So do I know that in trying to get Ricky? Because let's be fair, Ricky, and this is all, be very clear, this is all hypothetical. Ricky may be willing to leave Latitude for 500,000, and I'm just making up numbers here.
Sure.
So of course, as a business owner, you're going to say, well, if I could get Ricky for 500,000, that sounds pretty good. I would take that. So it matters on what you know and what the timing of that given situation is. Now, let's take it a step further and say, Ricky says, you know what? I don't really want to leave Latitude for under 1.5. Your question's almost too easy because you just said infinite amount of money. I mean, I don't think you should bat an eye at that then. Ricky at 1.5, I don't know why you would bat an eye at that. I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's a good point. And obviously a lot of this comes down to what Ricky's looking for. Like you said, is Ricky looking for a 1-year deal? Is he looking for a 10-year deal? Because if you sign a 10-year deal, you're probably going to get less per year. If you sign a 1-year deal, you can probably get more per year. But then you need to renegotiate because anything could happen. Like any sport, Ricky, heaven forbid, could slip on a tee pad and be out for a year. And then your value goes down. I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting bar that Paul has set is really what I'm getting at, and what Ricky's worth, whether it's, and it comes down to the manufacturer too, because let's pretend he's going to Discraft with Paul. The marketing might be completely different with Latitude than it was with Discraft. The Discraft might have more power behind them to market Ricky better, or maybe not, or maybe Ricky goes to Legacy where the marketing power isn't as good as Latitude. There are so many options and variables with contracts and these players. It's a really awesome time. Well, it's an awesome time for us because we can sit and speculate for hours, but it's an awesome time for disc golfers.
Well, I think with a new bar being set, with negotiations continuing to unfold, players have to align. They have to get to that piece of paper and say, I have this many wins. I'm playing in this many events. I have this kind of a social media clout. I have, I'm doing this many clinics. Those are all those different types of components that should factor into what they're going to get or what they can maybe demand, and how the market responds to that, or how these companies actually respond to that. I think that's going to be the real question. All I know is it's going to get more expensive for manufacturers, and that brings us to another point, which is as details are shared for these
make
contracts,
it public,
and if they become public, that's good for the players. Probably that's going to be more expensive for the manufacturers.
Make it public. That's my motto. Make it public. And here's what I'll say.
I disagree with.
I know. This is great because you and I are in different pages.
I mean, you can be wrong. I'm fine with that.
This is what I'll say.
That's why I have you here.
I don't want to know what Paul McBeth's monthly salary is. Like, I don't want to know if he made $50,000 this month from disc sales. But what I want public is the base numbers. 4 years, 1 million, and $8 per disc, or whatever the number is, because I honestly don't know what he's going to make per disc. And obviously, there's some number. It could be 2, it could be 5.
I think it's
8.
16. He's getting more than retail.
He's getting, yes. They pay him every time a disc sells out of their pocket. Yep. That's great. I want those details only because, not because I feel it's our business, not because I feel there's anything. I think that really shows the public what type of money we have, what we can push. I reached out to a potential sponsor today, and I'll say this: I threw some
for you,
for us, for
SmashBoxx. I thought you were going on your Masters tour next year.
Oh God, I wish.
Masters I didn't even
tour. I didn't even tell you this, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I shot high. I said, hey, guess what? Here's what we do. Here's what we're going to hopefully do next year. Would you like to be a part of this? Please get back to me. Maybe they'll never send me an email back. And I sent some examples.
Sounds like a solid plan.
You never know, but it doesn't hurt to. I was thinking it doesn't hurt to put that out there.
No,
having a company look at that and say, "Oh wow, these players are really making some money. This isn't just these guys throwing frisbees for $1,000 on a particular weekend. These are people that are going to be making 6 or 7 digits over the next couple of years. That's why I want to see it. And it even if it obviously it helps the players because it will push the bar up for players. Because guess what? Kyle Webster, who thankfully filmed for us this past weekend, which is why I'm bringing him up, will know his value versus a Zach Melton, versus a Paul McBeth. There will be a bar set. And I think right now there's a little too much. There's not a good enough marker for that. And it's what I think. It's why I think it should be more public. Just my thought.
Yeah, which, again, you're looking at it from a spectator / media / non-business owner perspective.
Correct.
You're looking at it from everyone's perspective except for the people that it will likely impact the most.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Well, you're right.
Which is fine.
I think it will benefit the sport more than the manufacturer. I think it will benefit because let's look at it this way. If I'm going to look around my IKEA. I'm looking at a shelf that I think I bought here at IKEA. If IKEA looks and says, "Oh wow, Paul McBeth is 4 years for $1 million," that's nothing to us. Let's sponsor a player. This is great. You know, it gets it out there. Maybe a manufacturer or maybe an outside company looks at it and says, "Wow, we could do that. That's a pittance to us." Maybe not. But I would rather have it out there. And I think in the long run, it will help manufacturers. It's clearly going to hurt them in the short run. Having everyone know what everyone makes and pushing these manufacturers more, it will maybe cause them to trim the bottom out. It'll maybe cause them to slim up their team. I don't know. Maybe we'll see people...
Which is good for whom?
I don't know. Maybe it's good for other manufacturers. Maybe we won't see, let's just say we won't see Innova with 200 people. Maybe we'll see them with 100, and those other 100 will shift to other manufacturers. Again, we don't know. It's because it hasn't happened, and it's not happening yet. And we've gone this long. We've gone 30-some years with so much stuff being just hearsay in the shadows. Oh, I heard Climo's making $0.25 a disc. Ooh. But no one will go on record as saying anything. Why not try something different? As Paul said, don't be afraid of something different. I'm going to put this in Paul's pocket. And speaking of something that's different, Bobby Brown reached out and he enjoyed the podcast tonight. He said, if I'm reading correctly, "You guys are the best. Better than all the rest." Some song. No. But he said that.
Simply the best.
Simply the best, yeah. He wanted to donate a dynamic disc tonight as well.
I feel like there's a marketing scheme in there somewhere.
There might be. I don't care. We get to give away something to our viewers. Above that. And all we have to do is give him the information. So Terry, or maybe as someone on the board, I want this to be a general giveaway, not a Patreon giveaway like our other ones. So let's think of a good way to give away a piece of plastic from Dynamic Discs. What do you think, Terry?
All right. To give away a piece of plastic from Dynamic Discs. Wow. There's so many ways to go with that. Man, I think we could go GBO related if we really wanted to. Except for I don't know any of the stats or the details. I know the GBO registration is up and running, but I didn't want to even guess how many people were there. That would be a good one, though, as to how many people are currently signed up for the GBO. But then you'd say, is that for the NT or is that for the, so-and-so? So I don't want to do that. How about, oh my goodness, no, because I have to know the answer first. And I don't want to be wrong. I've been wrong before. So
yeah, if anyone on the board has a good way for us to give something away,
a good question, just go ahead and ask it.
Yeah, go ahead and tell us your question so you can be the first to answer it.
All right, here it is. Here's the first person to answer this correctly. Thanks to our friends over at. I'm ready. I got the answer. So thanks to our friends over at Dynamic Discs. The question is, how many days before the GBO starts? There is one reference point for that, and that's the official reference point I'm going off of. So how many days before the GBO starts?
All right, Terry's going to be the official.
I got the answer directly I have the answer directly in front of me that I will reference. They've been posting it on social media. There's a couple of great guesses. Billy Smith is our answer, and it was very easy to find on glassblownopen.com. Billy Smith, the third person to answer. Kurt was close at 162, but Billy answered 154. And clearly you guys are paying attention because there's a lot of guesses that were really close and a few other that also got it right. So you guys are the smartest researchers. But Billy Smith is the answer. Billy, reach out to Bobby Brown directly.
You reach out to me on social media, on Facebook if you have it. If you don't have Facebook, please let us know, and we'll find it. You can always go to SmashBox. Actually, here, do this. Go Go to smashboxxTV/winners. And there'll be a prize. There'll be a form in there you can fill out. And then also reach out to me privately.
Okay.
And we'll make sure we get that information over to Bobby Brown. Bobby will send you something. Thank you, Dynamic Disc, for this. We had some big numbers tonight. I was very happy with what we saw tonight. This was great.
All right. Well, thank you, Bobby. And yes, out on glassblownopen.com, the countdown to GBO says 154 days. So that's where my official answer came from. All right, you guys can stop guessing numbers if you're behind.
Those poor people that are on just a little bit of delay. They might have rewound to watch Paul because they got here a couple minutes late, and now, bummer.
All right. Is there anything else we have to cover? I have no sense of time considering I know
it's daylight there.
Daylight out.
It's 11:40 here. We've been on for 2 hours and 40 minutes. As always, a great interview with Paul. We're gonna close down the stream for a few moments. We'll come back, I promise, and do our normal after show stuff.
Bobby's out in the comments saying he's going to send a sweet disc, and I'm not going to spoil it, but my hintometer wonders if it's maybe a chocolate disc from the Granada, because I'd love one of those, Bobby.
Those are good. Okay. I know. If you get to go to GBO, and you should, let me put this out there. Everybody should go to the GBO, whether you're playing or not, or broadcasting or not. You should go, because if we're not broadcasting, I need to get there and play. Go to the Granada, buy some chocolate. It's always really good.
Believe it or not, I don't normally. It's my GBO diet. I don't. All right. So let's close this down. We'll get into a relatively brief after show, at least a brief one for me. I see Luke, one of my gracious hosts here in Australia, said, "So much for a short show, Terry." As we're over at the course getting prepped. People are playing. There's going to be an awesome announcement or two coming from Zuka that's related to them assisting me and the Australian Disc Golf Championships. So look for that on my social media. But huge shout out to Zuka, and thank you for always supporting what Smashbox and the Disc Golf guy are doing. So you guys will see that on social media in the next day or so. So thank you for that. And in the after show, as we alluded to, we've got a Discraft zone we'll be giving away. And some lucky Patreon supporter will be getting this. So no Vegemite. I see that coming in. We'll talk about more Australia disc golf here in the after show in a few minutes, as the tournament director also just walked in. So, all right, Johnny, let's close things down. I'm going to thank Dynamite, of course, for joining us as he always does with his insights. And then we have to thank Paul McBeth and his influential amazing wife in Hannah McBeth. Thank you guys for the information and all the updates as the world is ablaze with the Paul McBeth Discraft news. Thank you to Discraft. You guys have also been a great supporter of what we're doing, and we're looking forward to continuing that for many years to come. And Bobby Brown, Cool Daddy Slick Breeze, all of our Smashies, Dynamic Discs, for Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf guy, and the Australian Disc Golf Championships. We'll see you in a few minutes when we move over to the after show from Australia. We'll see you then when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
How noisy is it if... Hello, everyone, and welcome back. SmashBoxxTV coming to you from Australia. Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, along with Johnny V, as we're just getting caught up. I didn't. Normally, Johnny and I have a little chat in between the regular show and the after show, but fortunately for one of us, I didn't hear him. So, what's going on, Johnny?
Not too much. For those of you that didn't get a chance to see the show, this is obviously always released on Saturday. Please go back and listen to the Paul McBeth interview. I thought he was very candid, and it was just in general a really good interview. I'm excited for the 2019 season.
Yeah, certainly. And to full disclosure, I guess I knew of this quite some time ago. The rumors continued to circulate, so on and so forth. Paul and I had some conversations. Believe it or not, yeah, I actually kept my mouth pretty quiet. And the rumors continued to circle. And that's why, to me, it was also entertaining. There were some very, very close, good guesses that happened. And there were also some just some outrageous stuff. And I guess that's all part of the fun. We can all speculate and just kind of make things up. But I should maybe do a top 5 list at some point of the most outrageously incorrect things that we saw out there before the news dropped. But nonetheless, also good stuff. So to answer a quick question I saw on the board, as always on the board, we interact a lot more with our chatters on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, we apologize. You kind of get ignored this whole time. But so if you do want to ask a question directly to us, doing it on YouTube is your best bet. The question was, what course is being played? We're here in Canberra, which is, believe it or not, Australia's capital. Most people would guess Sydney or Perth. In fact, I could have won a bet this weekend had I just made the offer and put down some money. But Canberra is the capital, and that's where it's being played. And we're at Weston Park. And it's going to be 27 holes, 3 rounds of 27 is going to be the format. And I want to say it's par 99.
Wow.
So you're talking about, I think there's a 1,200 footer out there. You're talking about a long weekend with a lot of golf to be played. But all that matters at all is that yesterday we went out to the course after a long day of travel, and I got within 6 feet of a kangaroo on the course. And yeah, life goal accomplished. Yeah, I was that close to a kangaroo. I was just hanging out on the course, hanging out. So pretty cool.
All right.
So, all right, on the board, Johnny, did you see anything on the board we need to, I'll run through these real quick. Marcus Burke said, Terry, when talking about Paul's sponsorship on a previous podcast, you said, think outside the box. What did you mean by that? Trying to confuse the situation? Ding, 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 ding. Exactly. Yeah. I was just trying to kind of throw everyone off the trail. Of course, it was moving in the direction of most people were kind of getting dialed in. And I think we still are going to see some innovative things from Paul. But I also don't think it's crazy. I think, let me put it this way. It's not crazy for him to start a company. I could very much see that happening.
He's starting up a pro shop. He's going to have his own course. He wants to run tournaments, have some sort of little gym or whatever. He should be starting some sort of LLC or a company.
Now, to say that him and Ricky would be starting a company together, which was a full-blown rumor out there, that one, not so much. But seeing someone like him start a company or get into the molding or manufacturing business, clearly I don't expect Paul to be sitting at an injection molder, like taking the disc out and actually like scientifically designing the disc. But to have him potentially hire the right people to then start his own company, I don't think that's crazy. I don't think it's out of the realm 10 years from now. I could see something like that. So I just wanted people to think more than just him getting a different sponsor, but that's ultimately what it was.
Tim Donegan asks, what went down at Ledgestone with Jomez and the DGPT? I thought I kind of mentioned or cleared it up. Jomez has had a particular sponsor last year. It was Innova for the most part, and I think they signed a year-long deal with them, or however it worked. And when they came to Ledgestone, I guess there was some Discraft had an issue with the advertising, more or less saying that, hey, this is our event. We don't want our competitor advertised all over. And so there was some headbutting, and I think ultimately, I'll say cooler heads prevailed because Jomez was there. If I remember correctly, they had Discraft sponsorship on their videos, so something was worked out. But I know that there was and I don't know all the details. I know there was some back and forth for a little while, and it was possible at one point that they weren't going to be at the event, and then they were, and who was going to be their sponsor, and that's all stuff that we're not really privy to. But I heard there was some rumbling back and forth, and that's, as I said, Paul, that's one of the reasons Smashbox has never said in general, hey, let's work just with one particular manufacturer. We want to work with everybody, and I think you're going to see that more this year with Jomez as well. More than likely, they're probably going to piecemeal more different sponsorship together. So.
Well, and that will be interesting to see. And I don't think I'm at all out of line in stating that I felt like they were very much, Innova backed and supported and driven, at least for this last year, and I think beyond. And I think about some events that are, when I had said to Paul, some events you have a presenting sponsor of the tournament, you have possibly a tour sponsor, like whether it's a national tour or pro tour, and then you have individual sponsorships for individual media crews, and then the players. I mean, those are all components that get factored in. When I think of I'll just throw out Masters Cup. There's one example off the top of my head. Masters Cup obviously is going to have the players. That's always going to be the variable, but it'll have the players. They've had at one point they had Spin TV, and then ultimately they've had Jomez, and then they have the actual event being an Innova National Tour event. When you're not backed by them as a media company, backed by Innova, there is this continued exclusion that happens. And I would say the same that could happen at the Memorial if you're non-Discraft, and the same could happen at the Gentlemen's Club if you're non-Innova. I mean, and look at all the events that way. And that continues to be part of the media challenge that's out there, is if you're tied too closely to any one manufacturer, that may almost immediately eliminate you from being involved with particular events. And that's just going to continue until we come to some magic. I don't know what that conclusion is going to be. Real quickly, I also wanted to just state, I was just handed a towel. This is really cool. So this is a map of the course this weekend that they're going to be playing on the front.
There you go.
Yep. I wanted. There's the map, and then on the back it has the hole descriptions and probably all the rules and details, hole lengths and descriptions on here. So it's a full color front and back, and it's got a really amazing feel to it. I want to protect my keyboard and then protect all my glasses and glass with it. And then, tell me, is there a sponsor of this? Or is it
Mankey Maps?
Mankey?
Mankey Maps.
Mankey Maps. Yeah, this is just amazing. So we're going to give this away as well. If you guys just hang out, we might have all sorts of tournament stuff. No, but I have one of these to give away. This is awesome. I love how this feels. It's incredibly soft, and we'll have this to give away also. So thank you very much. All right, that's Todd, who's running in and out of his own house, the tournament director. So a million things going on, and that will be given away as well. I'm telling you, it feels so.
Well,
I'm going to clean. Sorry, it's going to be dirty. I'm going to clean my computer screen with it first.
Well, let's give it away right now to one of our Patreon supporters.
I'll keep using it. All right.
So, as always, if you want to be, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to be qualified, so to speak, for our giveaway, patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV for as little as $1 a month. You can be entered into our weekly giveaway, and you get early access to the podcast. You get your own private RSS feed. We try to put a couple little extra things out there now and again for Patreon supporters that only they have access to. There's different levels you can support at. There's a $2 level. We'll get your name on the credits. $3 level, which will get you our disc, Terry, our disc.
Yeah, that.
No, the Patreon disc I'm talking about. That.
Oh yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. That I keep hounding Terry about. So, we have 197 Patreon supporters right now. I'm going to go here and we will bring this up. So 197. This will Terry, what number should we pick?
Well, it's my first time ever in Australia, so you pick one number and then we give it away.
First number. All right. Generate. Number is 192. So right here down at the bottom, Wes Kepi. Wes Kepi, longtime Smashy. Congratulations, Wes. You are going to get the towel and the disc that Terry has straight from Australia. Thank you.
Wes out of Iowa. I believe Wes may or may not even be also a big Discraft thrower. If you're not, you're about to become one. So thank you, Wes.
Should be.
That is a Z Zone, which you cannot just go pick up at the store. I believe that was a special consideration here for this event.
Not yet. In a little bit, we'll be giving away this disc member box, which is $50 worth of stuff from their This is their November package. I have no clue what's in here. And so it's going to be a surprise. I do know that if you like getting free, if you like getting fun stuff in the mail, this is always about a $50 value. For $25 a month, you can be a disc member subscriber. I think they've got an ultimate package as well. So if you like ultimate, and they'll send you that every month. And this particular month, they are giving away a Discmania disc. The December giveaway will be, let's see here. This month's package is a Discmania Metal Flake MD4 with an exclusive stamp, a disc golf beanie. We all know it's getting cold. $10 discstore.com gift card, a disc golf ornament, which is really cool. And as always, the UDisc Pro subscription for the life of your disc membership, all for just $24.99 a month. So we're going to give that away in a little while. This particular package we'll probably give away in another week or two. But this one right here, the November one, you're going to get this one tonight.
Wow.
What else we got, Terry? Now that we've done our plugs, not hair plugs.
Yeah,
either.
I mean,
we're both good.
No, I definitely don't need those. And I'm not going to lie. My hair, after like 36 hours of travel, I had to do my hair on Sunday morning. This is why you guys tune in, by the way. I had to do my hair on Sunday morning before the next gen finale. And then at 10:30 at night, I'm getting on, 7:30, I'm getting on a plane. 10:30, I'm getting on another plane. Then I travel. Then we go an entire day. We lose Monday somehow in this whole process. And then all day yesterday, my hair was on point last night still. I'm just telling you, I was ecstatic.
Paul's hair was on point.
I don't need any hair plugs.
Yeah, no, Paul's hair was on point. Definitely looking good.
No, I'm super excited. Of course, this upcoming week, here I am in Australia. Very exciting experience to be here, to be part of the event. I'm going to be joined by another cameraman. I've got both of my cameras along, so we're going to be doing that. And then some sightseeing and other things outside of disc golf, believe it or not, I'll be able to take in and partake while I'm here in Australia. So that's great. We talked about the next gen wrapping up. I know at some point in the future, we'll have Silas join us. Interesting fact that this year, as opposed to last year, jumping back to that quickly, last year, the car was for show. Of course, it was a Kia Soul, and they were given that. But they actually, when they got home, whoever the winner was, in this case, Chris Kesselhoff, when he got home, he went to his local dealer. He picked out the car. He did all of those details. Well, in talking to the next gen this year, they said it would ultimately be better and easier overall for everybody because there were so many challenges with that they adapted. And they said, nope, the car that we bring out there is the car that's actually going to be handed to someone. So this year, Silas being the winner, but only being 15, ultimately his dad, I'm guessing, was the one that took ownership of it. And then, as some of you saw, first nor second could drive legally. So ultimately, Harold Greer from Emporia, Kansas, was handed the keys, kind of as part of the the show and the idea. He was handed the keys to then drive it off into the sunset as we were finishing up the coverage. And unfortunately, well, Harold stalled it, and
I did see that. He stalled it right away.
Yeah.
I even called it. I said he's going to stall this.
Rooting for it.
It's a different. I mean, even if you know how to drive stick, you get into a brand new car that you are not familiar with a clutch that's probably different than your own. I can completely sympathize with stalling that the first time.
That's one of those instances you'd rather give it a little extra gas and maybe do a burnout before you would, assume stall it. But
I would feel bad if I accidentally did a burnout on hole 18 at the fountain.
I was just hoping nothing truly tragic would happen, a la AKA Chris Herron, putting a Jeep into the lake kind of thing. So as long as that didn't happen, I guess it was all good. So. No, there was that. And then speaking of cars and speaking of Australia, it's definitely been unique being on the other side of the road, even though I've just been a backseat passenger. It just feels different, when you're here and you're moving down a highway or you're in a very congested Sydney. Yeah, it feels weird being on that side of the road. Let me tell you that. So, I don't have a lot. Johnny, I already teased out the Zuka stuff, and I'm excited for this week.
Yeah, I understand you've been traveling a ton, and I know we'll have more next week regarding the Australia event, and I'm sure next week we'll probably have more info regarding players and movement and what's going on. This particular week has been filled with nothing but media coverage and Paul McBeth. That's what this week in disc golf is.
Now, the one question that I know I was going to ask, and then I got sidetracked or something. One question I meant to ask Paul, and maybe him or Hannah are still on the board, is whose decision and how did it come about to make the announcements that they did for both? And I'll say the announcement by Innova saying, "Hey, I'm leaving," or that he's leaving, which was on October 31st, and then to follow that up, the announcement by Discraft. Technically yesterday or the day before. That was one little piece within the overall interview that now that I just remembered. That was something that it was on the tip of my tongue, and then something else happened that I didn't get to ask that. But I would be genuinely interested to know more about that, how that unfolded. Do you have any guesses or insights or even speculation on that?
No, I would hope that they have still a positive relationship where Paul would say, "Hey, we would like to announce by this time. Can you make your announcement that I won't be on the team?" Or they come to an agreement, like maybe Innova says, "Hey, we'd like to make the announcement." Kind of in the same position maybe we were last week, And someone has to make the decision. Someone has to make the call. And when it involves you, maybe it's best to come from you. That's a great question because I don't know. And maybe you can do a little private follow-up, and if you're lucky, we'll be able to discuss that if he doesn't discuss it with another podcast before then.
Yeah, and Dion Arlen's out on the board. Dion had so graciously reached out to me a week or so ago and said he would love to be in that conversation, and maybe if you wanted to follow up with him or talk about it, as I'm going to get going soon, but have that conversation about what Dion, who's as experienced and as knowledgeable as anyone else out there, especially when it comes to Discraft, have someone like Dion speculate what we might see in the bag. And I think Dion could certainly fill that role, as he's offered to even do so. I would be curious to hear somebody more or less speculate on it as well. And Dion being a longtime sponsored player of Discraft might be, the best possible person to ask. So
Dion's just looking for the big money now. He knows,
he wants to get that.
He's looking for that paycheck.
I kind of glossed over it earlier, but I'll bring it up quickly again. Any surprise, any follow-up thoughts to the Disc Golf World Tour making that announcement, I think earlier today, saying, "Hey, we're not going to be back in 2019"? Did you? We didn't. I just kind of glossed over that earlier.
I didn't think.
Were you on the edge of your seat waiting?
No, I think everybody assumed it wasn't coming back. Like there was no shock to. There was no shock to it. I did kind of get this funny chuckle. I wish I could. Do you have the announcement handy?
And it's funny because I only saw it because it was technically like posted by someone else of someone else.
Correct.
And I don't even now remember where I saw it. I'm going to go to UC maybe and just see if it's possibly on his board directly.
Just the way it was phrased, it kind of made it sound like, hey, we still weren't able to, we weren't able to secure a big outside sponsor. We're not coming back next year. But, okay, here
I have it. The Disc Golf World Tour will not return to the pro disc golf circuit in 2019. Quote, while I'm sad to realize that our tour did not have the support and elements for sustainable future at the moment, I'm also excited to see the recent development of pro disc golf. It's a great time to be a disc golf fan. I envision that our sport will be ready for even larger audience in the coming years. When that time comes, Disc Golf World Tour is right there for it. End quote. UC
that last sentence is kind of what made me chuckle.
Do you
I
feel
envision
like
our sport is
a piggyback?
No, well, I envision that our sport will be ready for even larger audience in the coming years. When that time comes, Disc Golf World Tour will be right there for it. So once, I feel funny saying it, but once the sport gets bigger, UC will jump right in, is kind of what I feel like that sentence says.
I think someone could read it that way. Sure.
And I don't think, and again, we've always said UC has a unique way of, English isn't always his first language. It's a different type of culture. You could read it that we're just going to wait until things get bigger and we have this great brand, and once it does, we'll be right there for it. Which to me kind of makes it feel, there's a little dirty feeling there. Like the Pro Tour is building up this thing, and once the Pro Tour can start to bring more people in, you'll be happy to jump in. And does he mean it that way? Probably not. But that's just the way it comes off.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I could see how it could certainly be interpreted that way, and I'm not here to pick on them, but
no,
it is fair to say no one was on the edge of their seat, biting their nails, saying, "I'm just waiting for that Pro Tour announcement." I don't feel like that would be a fair assessment by anyone.
And he has to weigh the decision. UC does of. Let's say that's 3 years from now, 4 years from now. Disc golf is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Is the World Tour even a consideration? Does anyone even care about it by then? I mean, that's something he has to weigh, because the World Tour has a very good brand. Like, it looks good. It's very high quality. They've always come off extremely professional. They've hired outside crews. The graphics, the quality, the extras that they always put in were always phenomenal. But I don't care how good you are, if you're not around for 4, 5 years, what value does your brand have anymore?
Well, I would flip that on its head, though, and I'd challenge you and say, if UC showed up, let's say we heard literally 0 words about the Disc Golf World Tour for 5 years, and we fast forward to 5 years from today, so 11/21/2023, I'll do that math, 2023, and UC came on our podcast and said, I grimace because that's probably a stretch because he doesn't share a lot with us, but if he came on our podcast and said, World Tour's coming back, BMW is our title sponsor for $1 million, I think it's fair to say the disc golfers and the community would jump right at it. Why wouldn't they?
Sure. If that's
right?
a big deal by then. Guess what? If in 2022,
okay,
Disc Golf Pro Tour comes and says, "Hey, guess what? We got Ford, and they're a $5 million sponsor." I'm just saying, everything is relative. I hope that. I honestly, I don't even know what I hope. I have no expectations for the World Tour, because UC wants to bring in a big outside sponsor. If he can, that's awesome. If it starts to blow up and he's the first to bring in a big sponsor, it's going to make a huge splash. If the Pro Tour has already brought in a big sponsor, then I still look like you're jumping in the pool when the pool's already full. So,
or I was going to say already warm. I don't know.
Pool,
warm pool.
I don't want to jump into a warm pool. Warm tub, maybe. Warm pool might be a little awkward. Well, my friend's got a heated pool. Warm pools.
All right, let's officially sidetrack to non-disc golf just for a moment, because everybody talks about series of shows, none of which I almost ever can even think about talking about, because rarely do I have that time or that energy put into searching out other non-disc golf related news or activities. But I had 15 hours on a plane, so with no power outlet. That's the number one factor. No like AC power. So I got to
bring that battery.
My computer
back.
battery life. Yeah, my computer battery life could only get me so far. So I was able, totally switching gears for a second, I was able to consume 2 series, and I'd be curious to know what other people's thoughts were on either of them. I'll start with the one that I consumed all of, which was AP Bio.
Oh,
and I wanted to Google that. Was that not like a?
That's like that was an NBC product that looked really cheesy and lame.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Of course, like any other television,
classic
it had a few redeeming qualities. Yeah, I mean, clearly I wasn't falling off my chair laughing or falling out of my seat laughing. It mildly entertained me enough to keep me coming back for some of the episodes. I'll go on record and say, sorry, Patton Oswalt, but I think you're terrible in it. And I know you were supposed to play a certain style of character. Mm-hmm. I still thought you were terrible in it. So I consumed that, and then on a much edgier form, I found myself in a Showtime series that was provided thanks to Qantas Airlines. Shout out to Qantas, I know you're watching. Smilf was the series, and I want to say I only got into I ran out of
sounds dirty
of airline time. It's exactly what you think it is.
Okay.
Okay, so starring Frankie Shaw, who is a 2018 Golden Globe nominee. Okay, that's more than I knew. I'll admit I had zero premonition other than the title. Never heard of it. No buzz about it. No nothing. And that's I got into that.
Was it any good?
I think it's good.
Okay. It's just funny that with all the other series out there that people recommend, for whatever reason, you pick 2 that I've never heard anybody say, hey, this is one you should watch.
Now, mind you, I'm not on Netflix. I'm not on Hulu. I am on the provided.
I get Smilf because
entertainment on this screen.
So all the entertainment. So yeah. Oh my God, you rookie. How did you not like download a bunch of stuff on your phone from Netflix or? Oh
yeah, I didn't. I was busy.
I would have gone to whatever. Yeah, I mean, you weren't. I mean, I know you're busy, but I'm sure you had probably an hour in an airport where you were sitting there at some point, where you could have gone to Netflix and go, "Here's a series download." But I get it. I understand.
And that's a fair question, but no, this was the provided in screen or in chair entertainment that was provided. Here's something else that I can I take my shout out to Qantas back? They didn't have Wi-Fi. Are you kidding? You're on a 15-hour. Now maybe I just wasn't in the disc golf rich, Paul McBeth seats, but they didn't.
I don't know how many international
Wi-Fi available.
I don't fly international very often. I don't know how many international flights have Wi-Fi. A lot of.
Why wouldn't you?
No, I get that.
Answer me that.
I get that, but I know a lot of, intercontinental flights have them. But, yeah, I don't know. But you know what I do have?
You're on a plane for 15 hours.
I know. Maybe there's logistics on why they can't. I don't know.
I was disappointed.
I get it. We're going to give this away now.
All right. What do you got? I'm not
Discmania box. Discmania. The Discmember box. It says DM, and I always...
Ouch.
And I'm looking at the UC post right now. The Discmania.
Discmember.
It is a Discmember box. The Discmania is in my head, is what I'm trying to say for whatever reason. But yes, Discmember.com. Again, if you do sign up, mention Smashbox and let them know that you found them with us, and maybe they'll do some really wonderful things for you.
More giveaways.
More giveaways. More giveaways. All right, so we have the same 197 people. We did not get any in the last half hour, but all the people.
Somebody said they signed up earlier.
We did
check it, but we lost one too.
Well, I mean, I see the ones that all came in. We had 5 people. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, 4 people since 9:30. So, and they're all in my inbox here, and they're all in the list. So you are all on. You are all on my list.
All right.
All right. So, give me a number, Terry. Something maybe Thanksgiving related.
All right.
3. The third Thursday. Thanksgiving, right?
Sure. I'll miss it. I won't even be in the States, but that's cool.
Well, that's because you don't matter.
Talk about Thanksgiving.
We will. I'll have some mashed potatoes and stuff. So I'm going to do the third number. First number is 114. Second number is 129. Third number is 16. So we go to the top of the list. 16 is Bo McLaughlin. Congratulations, Bo. Much appreciated your patronage.
What's Bo's last name? Is it listed?
Yeah, McLaughlin. It's spelled McLaughlin, but I think it's pronounced McLaughlin.
Ha! That's funny.
That was the worst joke ever. Way to go, Terry.
No, I didn't. I meant that's funny because I believe if that's the Bo I think it is, I think that's the Bo I interviewed at the Next Gen finale this weekend.
Really?
So,
well, I hope so.
I believe it is. But you're all of a sudden you're cutting out on me too. So
I think it's on your side. Sure, I think it's on your side. I saw you freeze up for a second there. So now actually you've probably used up all the internet in Australia. I think now is a good time we can probably call it a night. So that they can recharge their internet on the island.
Yes, that's exactly what they need to do here. Well, yeah, I'm good. We can call it now that it's been going on this long. So I want to go ahead and thank everybody for joining us tonight during the regular show as well as our after show. We want to thank all of our Smashies and all of our Patreon supporters. We love you more than the non-Patreon supporters. I don't know if I should. Yeah, I can say that. But we do appreciate each and every one of you for logging in to support us, even if it's just by listening and ticking it in or sharing the link with people that to let them know that you're watching Disc Golf. We appreciate it. So for Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, from everyone here in Australia, including the kangaroo I'm going to hug by the end of the week, I want to thank you guys. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smash Box.
Don't hug kangaroos.